Hello everyone, welcome to another Friday Night Dice. No campaign tonight, instead we're doing a podcast. This is going to be episode 3 of our podcast series. Tonight we're actually talking about 1 DnD. I am actually joined by 2 other members of our Friday Night Dice cast. I am actually joined by Sean and Bailey. Hello guys, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing alright. How about yourself?
5 times the charm.
Hey,
Got it eventually, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Just low rolls tonight,
Yeah, starting a podcast, if you're watching this live, that took me, I think I rolled like 3 nat 1s and a couple of low rolls after that. So that's really, really great start for us here. So, yeah. But yeah, 1 DnD. Before we dive into everything about what 1 DnD is, just give an overall, do you guys like it or you don't like it?
It's definitely playtest for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
Overall, I think it's a fine direction for a new edition of D&D.
Mm-hmm.
With some major caveats.
It's very different from 5e. And we'll get into why in a minute, or the rules and whatnot. In my personal opinion, it's limiting a lot of the options and giving you new options in other ways, but not to the same extent, which I'm not a fan of personally.
I mean, I know it's an evolution of the game, and a lot of people have the first iteration of D&D has been 5e, whether it's been through friends or COVID or Critical Role, because we all know Critical Role has been the poster child of D&D for the past 4 or 5 years now. They've been around more than that, but it's really in the last 4 or 5 years they've really skyrocketed and everything. But a lot of their people have been coming from 5e, so they really can't do too much changes to alienate that group. And I think making some things easier is a good and bad thing. But a lot of this rules that they've put in are actually house rules and stuff like that. And of course, all playtests when they come out with a UA and stuff does come with a PDF file, which we see right on the screen here. But we're actually going to jump ahead to the rules section because a lot of this stuff jumps into talking about certain rules and stuff like that, but they don't define what the rules are till the end of the document. So we're actually going to jump ahead to the end. So you guys said you want to talk about the rules test, which is the D20 test, I believe was the first part we want to dive into.
Yes. So for a quick overview, any test that you make on a nat 1, test being a skill check, a attack roll, and a saving throw, if I remember correctly. On a d20, a 20 always succeeds, and a 1 always fails. Previously in 5e, it was only attack rolls where 20s always succeeded and were crits, and 1s were always a failure, not so much skill checks or saving throws, which is one thing that specifically Leo doesn't like is the nat 1s on saving throws. He doesn't like that you can't fail specifically. And in addition to that, anytime you roll a nat 20, you get an inspiration point.
Yeah, I think we can circle back around to inspiration in a bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, auto success and auto failure on 1s and 20s is fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. As for, I'm not a big fan of the auto success for the skill check, unless if you can redefine what a success is. Like for some of the most out of left field examples. Oh, I want to jump to the moon. Okay, make an athletics check. Nat 20, I auto succeed. Doesn't, but as a DM, personally, I wouldn't make that necessarily a succeed to where he jumps to the moon. That would be absolutely ridiculous. Or similar things like that. As opposed to he has a neutral result where well, you can't get to the moon because that's physically impossible, but you didn't hurt yourself in the attack.
Right, but as a
Yeah.
DM, you can't put yourself. I think the biggest thing is you cannot put yourself in that position where you have that effect happen. Because obviously, if you're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to jump," 60 feet in the air, there's already rules in place on how high you can jump and everything. Just follow those rules. Don't leave it out there hanging out. That's going to be you're going to put yourself in that situation. Really,
Well,
you don't really need
and
a rule safeguard of yourself to do something. Pardon my French, but something dumb. You know.
yeah, for how long in D&D's history have we had horror stories about the character that wanted to do something impossible, but they rolled a nat 20?
Right.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the problems always circles back to the DM's new at the game. They don't know how to handle it. And these rules don't really give you much guidance on how to handle it as a new DM.
Right.
Well, you can't make rules on experience. It's all about experience there. And you just have to grow as DM, learn from your mistakes and everything, and go from there.
Ideally, learn from other people's mistakes.
The other thing, I mean, we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, is how critically you can't do. Spells cannot critical hit. I know we had a lot of discussions around the game before one of our sessions about that, and that's been a big point of contention here.
Right.
You guys, how do you feel? If that is the way you deal damage as your character, I'm okay with that. You can't
Yeah.
do it can't do a critical hit on a fireball. Yeah, that's a saving throws for that. Any major big damage spells, for the most part, are save base. So you're not going to roll the critical hit and do double fireball damage unless you're twin spell, because that's a whole another beast and a whole another animal. That's sorcerer stuff. But if you're doing like Eldritch Blast is basically another variation of saying a arrow or a crossbow bolt. I mean, that's essentially what the Warlock's doing. Yes, they can shoot a lot more at higher levels, but that's higher levels. I mean, that's my 2 cents.
Well, their races or not races, other class get multiple attacks at higher levels. So there's specifically with the cantrip to attacks equivalent. I don't see why there's a reason on capping it at you can't. What's the word? Can't crit with those.
Oh, and here's the part that irks me, really grinds my gears. Everything they're
Really
doing,
grinds my gears.
the designers keep talking about streamlining, right? This is the opposite of streamlining. Now it's like, all right, you're rolling an attack. Well, it's a natural 20. Okay. Well, that means it automatically hits. But does it crit? Well, no, because it's a firebolt.
Right. That too.
It's just more bookkeeping.
I feel like, well, maybe in the playtest rules, we don't know if it'll be in the actual rules of 1D&D. I feel like it's probably, if it is, it's probably going to be house ruled in a lot of tables where you can critically hit with attack roll spells at least.
It's not like, I mean, the spells that can crit are the weaker spells anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah.
Spells that can hit, well, if you miss, it does jack, but if you crit, then it does double. Well, if you have a saving throw damage dealing spell like Fireball or other things, if they fail to save, it does full damage. If they make the save, they still take half, as opposed to if you miss with the attack roll, it misses.
Yeah.
Like, why?
And, getting hit by a firebolt sucks, but failing a save on banishment?
That's just the role. I mean, but yeah, I guess we can move ahead a little bit on the one other big rule is the grappling rule. Now, I guess this is going to turn monks to learn now instead of just kicking and punching karate or whatever. Now they can learn jujitsu now apparently, and grapple is one of their attacks and do other things. Grappling has been a very weak point in D&D 5e and progressively through. This is almost feels like a huge buff, guys, doesn't it?
If I remember correctly, if you make an attack roll instead of doing damage, you can instead grapple them. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yes.
And also, as part of the condition now, they can, instead of using their action to try to escape, they get a saving throw at the end of each of their turns to escape a grapple.
Right.
Really?
It's no longer contested now. It is a straight up. It's a straight up like if I attack you and hit you, you are grappled, and then I can. And then there's other things like there might be other feats or something like you can pull them down to the ground to tackle them down to the ground, and then your teammates can attack them with opportunity attacks, and you can't. And your movement speed's 0, so you can't move or anything either. So. It's pretty complicated. And then that goes back to the whole thing. It's like you want to make it easier. This is actually making it more complicated, isn't it?
No, it's always been this. It's always been this complicated, but with the added bonus of contested skill checks.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to mention as well that if you are grappled, you have disadvantage on attack rolls on creatures other than the grappler, which I think is a huge buff, and I actually really like personally.
Oh yeah,
because it gives you a reason to grapple somebody as opposed to they can't move anymore. What the frickin' do?
I mean, I wouldn't want to do that as the monk, but I might as a barbarian.
Right.
Well, I think it is based off of offhand
It is based on
unarmed
strikes.
But yeah, so the monk will automatically be able to get into that. And I'm also thinking about this. Remember my orc monk?
No.
Having 5 attacks?
The Path of the Beast Barbarian monk?
Yeah, the Path of the Beast Barbarian monk with Path of Beast monk with Barbarian. And having 5 attacks on a turn and being able to just grapple them and just go and just pound them like on the ground, ground and pound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you're going MMA, I guess. On this.
It's interesting because of how it makes certain grappling builds much easier to come up with. Because prior, you'd be like, okay, well, I want advantage, so I want to be a barbarian. But I want expertise, so I also want to throw in a level of rogue?
For the sneak attack?
No, just for the expertise on the grappling check back when it was a skill check.
Let's see.
Now, I mean, it does make... It means that... I mean, it's weird, because it means that wearing plate mail makes you harder to grab.
Rather than just straight up being stronger.
Right.
That part I don't personally like about it.
I don't get either, because I mean, have either of you taken martial arts at all?
I was like 5.
Well, I did take martial arts for a couple of years in college, when I was in college in my last year of high school. And the more clothing somebody is wearing and the more gaps they have in their clothing, the easier it is to grapple them. And they actually teach you how to grapple people specifically wearing certain sets of clothing, whether it's a gi, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a jacket, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there are ways to grapple onto people and basically pin that arm by just taking your fingers and twisting it in your hand, and now you have no more use of your left arm and you're not going anywhere. And I can move you and do whatever I want with you. You could do the same thing in plate mail. Plate mail has gaps. It's layered plates on top of each other. You can get your hand up in there and grab like a belt or one leather straps or something, and you can still have full control. Not to mention that the person is going to be less movable because, again, if you go back to the rules, wearing heavy armor, your dexterity modifier for your armor goes down, and you have decrease in stealth and other things. You take dexterity penalties when you wear heavy armor like that. So unless you brute strength yourself out of it, I mean, I'm now applying real life to D&D, whatever, it's Fantasy World. But but I really don't see, it makes it easier. You have other things to grab onto and grapple with. I mean, that's my opinion.
I think we're more so saying it's easier, like a random wizard could nat 20, well, granted, nat 20 is an auto success, but could potentially grapple a giant on a high attack roll as opposed to actually needing to fight the giant's athletics or any other creature's acrobatics.
There
It
is
doesn't
still
take into-
size restrictions.
Is there?
Yes, you can't grapple something more than one size larger.
Okay, I'm not seeing it blatantly in there, but
It was mentioned somewhere, like you have to like use
This grapple is only possible if the target is no more than one size larger than you, and if you have a hand free to grab the target. Shoving, by the way, which is sometimes better, is also only possible for targets one size larger than you.
some giants, which I think are large, right? Like a elephant,
Uh,
or are they also
You're thinking like ogres.
maybe?
giants could grapple you with their pinky. I mean, come on.
But I mean that is kind of a funny image of just the wizard having like a +3 to hit and grappling the knight in shining armor.
It's definitely a possibility as opposed to fighting the knights, athletics check or acrobatics.
Does it say what the escape DC is?
Escape
Yes.
or grappled, you can make a dexterity or strength saving throw against the grapple's escape DC at the end of each of your turn, ending you can turn yourself on a success. The condition also ends if
The grapple's escape DC equals 8 plus your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus.
Hello 4 packet loss. Thank you for the first time chat. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, but at least the grapple is getting some love finally. I mean, that's the big thing, I think.
Yeah, I don't hate these changes.
No.
They're weird, but I don't hate them.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else in the rules section you want to hit on real quick? I mean, I know spells. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Is there anything before spells?
Yeah, if you could go up to inspiration on page 19.
Sure,
it's already on
I
the
could do
screen.
that. I am on 19.
Inspiration. This inspiration's been inflated, guys. We're getting lots of it.
Anytime you roll, that's what I said earlier. Anytime you roll on that 20 on a test, you get inspiration, which I like that it's more common because it's kind of an overlooked aspect of D&D, in my opinion, personally. Unless if you kind of shoehorn inspiration into the game, like we do it on every level, and whatnot.
Yeah, for those of you who don't watch our regular shows, we do, in ours, when you level up, you do get a DM inspiration to use anytime, and you gain another one once you level up again. Of course, you also have the Bard's inspiration. There's other various ways to get inspiration as well. But rolling a nat 20, basically giving you a silvery barbs effect, I personally don't like it, really, honestly.
I mean, I've seen a lot of people already coming up with their house rules for this.
Some of these
like,
are house rules that they're just incorporating, too.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people are like, okay, we're going to change this to inspirations on natural ones, because the problem that they see with inspiration on nat 20 is, well, then your next roll is going to roll twice and have twice the chance of another nat 20.
I see what you're saying.
And then if you're an elf with elven accuracy,
Even higher team, 20.
yeah, from people that have actually play tested this, I've heard that it's
Thank you for the follow.
fine, but it feels, especially for like, I feel like our group is already so good at building characters that are very powerful in the world that giving them just all of the advantage all of the time on top of it is too much.
And it's not like you're ever going to lose the inspiration. If you have inspiration and you gain another inspiration point in 5e, you'll just straight up lose it. In the playtest we have here, if you already have the inspiration, you can pass it off onto somebody else in your group so it doesn't get lost.
And we're always, I mean, if we're getting all this inspiration, we're using it, so we're not losing it on a short or on a long rest either.
Right. So a lot more advantage than what's absolutely necessary. Oh, I just remembered something about the critical hits if we don't mind going back.
I was gonna get into that too, but go ahead.
One thing I think we forgot to mention about the critical hits is monsters can't critical hit.
Oh yeah, that was I mentioned that. So
yeah,
I do not like that at all.
No, I love
even
the
not as a
my
DM. I
zombies
don't like
beat
that
up
at all.
on you guys.
It doesn't even, like, what Jeremy Crawford has said, the design intent here is that monsters already have their own mechanic for suddenly ramping up tension in recharge abilities, but, like, that's only 1 out of every 10 monsters.
Yeah, not every monster has recharge ability, especially at lower levels.
And for those of you following along, critical hit is when you roll a natural 20 on a die. Again, means you automatically succeed on whether the check that is, or you automatically critical hit something, which means you do double the dice damage plus your modifier. So instead of doing, like, if you roll and you roll 20, you do get the hit in, but instead of rolling 1d6 or 6-sided die to do the damage, you actually roll 2 of them, add those together plus your modifier, which is either your strength, dexterity, usually modifier, to that damage. You're doing double the damage, basically. And monsters cannot do that, apparently, in 1 D&D.
Yeah, there's also a bit that people have been talking about that the way they worded critical hits in the playtest, it's only the damage die of the weapon. So sneak attack dice no longer get doubled. Smite no longer gets doubled. But we also don't know what sneak attack and smite look like in the playtest yet. So I don't really care. Yet.
Right.
But monster's not critically hitting.
Hashtag yet. To be determined.
Yeah, but monster's not critically hitting. We haven't seen a single monster playtest.
No.
If you want a quick house rule to use these rules and actually get the stated design intent of the designers, give monsters of your choice a recharge ability that lets them replicate the effects of a crit.
Like a legendary, like another variation of legendary action is what you're saying?
No, a recharge ability, the monster can choose to automatically hit the target and deal extra damage, but they can only do it once they've rolled a 6 on a d6.
Oh, like a breath weapon.
Like a breath weapon.
That would mean everybody could. That means every single monster you could fight would open with a critical hit. Though.
It would
unless you automatically say
they're
not charged yet at the beginning of combat.
The point is, as the designers intended, the DM can control when that happens.
Sometimes you just gotta let the chips fall where they lie, and part of D&D is gambling. It is like you're taking a chance and rolling the dice, and that's what you get.
Look, trust me, I know my first character got
award for everybody.
My first character got crit by that bugbear in Lost Mines of Fendelver and died.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will tell the exact same story about that exact bugbear critting their first character.
Oh yeah, and it's happened multiple people.
Like when in our game, Ryan getting crit by a hill giant at level 2.
Yeah, first or second play session in this current campaign, Ryan goes down from a critical hit from a giant right off the back, and it's like, it got real.
And I get the designer's intent. It would be cool to have control over that, but it's not necessary, and it's not necessary. I've given you some rules to actually make the rules work the way they intended, and because these rules don't do that.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Because now monsters are just weak.
I think that's about it, because I mean the only other thing to note is that Tremor Sense is not vision anymore. It's a feeling apparently now. So it's not a visual thing. It's like you can't see the thing. You can feel the thing. You just can't see the thing.
I'm fine with that because the way it was originally worded, they just didn't tell you if it was actually sight or not.
Right. Yeah, they never specified.
Yeah, they did clarify that. A lot of 1D&D is DMG Heroes Handbook, Player's Handbook, reiterations, and it's just catching up with the current releases from the game that are going like, well, rules as written from 10 years ago say this. And yeah. It's expansions. It's basically expansions, arguments with the original rules as written set from 10 years prior, and they're just trying to clean some of that stuff up too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just as a broad stroke, everything that in the rules glossary that's just clarifying rules is awesome. And brief note, spells broken down into 3 lists, but we don't know anything about how that's going to do anything, so. And you're muted, Sabre.
There you go. Yeah, we're talking about the spells. Their spells are broken into 3 sections. We only got this 0 and first level spells, 0s being cantrips. Cantrips are spells you can use unlimitedly, and they're broken into 3 sections. One's arcane, which is the spell and the control of the weave. One is set to divine, which basically says your god or patron give these spells to you. And the other one is primal, which also could be patron based, but it's also nature based. The nature or natural world around you gives you these spells. Gives you these spells. And you guys immediately, I think you were one of the first ones to find this. There's one spell that's missing from this list.
Well, shout out to Treant Monk who spotted it, and that's where I found out.
That's where you found out. I know one of you found out before even Treant Monk even sent out the thing. That everybody's favorite cantrip, unlimitedly, Eldritch Blast, is not on the list.
We got every other spell of these levels from the Player's Handbook. Eldritch Blast is not on the list, so maybe it's going to be a Warlock feature?
Well, I mean, there is that part where, if you look at the progression of Eldritch Blast, remember that when they came out with, I think it was Strixhaven, that you can pick up a feat, a Warlock kind of feat, where you got there was like a Warlock, you can get spells. And one of the spells was from the Warlock spell list, which you can get Eldritch Blast. But there was a note saying there that if you don't have... Oh, no, wait. It was the Warlock... what's the extra power stuff? I always forget what they're called. The
invocations?
Yeah, the invocations. Like, you can't take the invocations to power up Eldritch Blast unless you are a Warlock that meets those requirements. So when that came out, and now we're seeing this, where Eldritch Blast is not even on the list, and knowing that it could just be a feature from an actual Warlock class now, that does track on the progression of where Eldritch Blast was going in.
Yeah, I mean...
What would you classify Warlock spells as? Would they be...
Earlier in this document, they clarify that Warlocks are arcane spellcasters.
They're arcane, they're not divine. Well, I mean, divine is more holy, I guess you could say. But I always mean to consider them primal. Well, I mean, it could go anywhere, really.
Well, there's a Celestial Warlock, which I believe has a divine feature, if I'm correct.
But it should also be clarified that classes might take from multiple lists, despite being broadly categorized in one. So, like, bards are arcane spellcasters, but they might take some divine and primal spells.
And there are some spells that fall on the list of multiple areas, like Cure Wounds is under Divine and Primal. So
Yes.
there are spells that go across multiple areas of, I guess, definition, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think broadly, wizards will have arcane, clerics will have divine, druids will have primal, and everyone else is gonna be
Somewhere
broadly
in the middle.
somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in between. Go ahead, Bailey.
I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, okay. But do note that shield is on the arcane area though. So
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
bards and warlocks with shield.
yeah,
Yay!
which means cleric again, but that does track. Clerics don't get shield unless they. Well, I mean, again, when you say it could take multiple paths, multiple angles, that you can still get some of these spells from a cleric can get from the arcane list, depending on what their subclass is, because the subclass can start tapping into some of these other areas again, because what it is now, like when you take a class with a subclass, the subclass will give you some spells that are not normally in that class's actual spell list. It'll give you spells from other classes' spell lists usually. So in optimization, you get a spell from your race, you get a spell from a feature, you get a spell from your subclass, and it gives you more options to go from. And it doesn't even count against the number of spells. Usually, it doesn't count the number of spells you actually learn. So it gives you more stuff to choose from.
Do we want to jump on into the races then?
Oh, yes, let's get racial. Let's go racial now. Oh, boy. So, character races. Now, there's the biggest change for character races by far, and this has been a progressing thing because of, I believe it was Tasha's, right, when they started doing this, is opening up where your ability scores are not tied to your race. And now they've completely broken that off out of race. It's not based on race anymore. It's actually based on your background. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, we're talking about race first, though. So, talk about race, guys. You want to go by the various races, or you want to just go with the general overview of it first?
Well, general overview, I like most of them. Half races are gone. Half orcs, half elves.
They're still there. They're still there, but it's not like in order to be a half race, you don't have to mate with a human. You can have an elf go with an orc. You can have a.
They're there in the capacity that the dwarf elf has always existed. There's no rules for them. The rules are pick one of the two races.
Right. If you're a half race, you pick one of the two and you average out the lifespans. That's it.
Yeah, because
So, half elf
changing the appearance of your character, that's always been a thing you can do. You don't need to be a half race to do that.
Mhm.
I mean, some races do have multiple feats, though. I mean, I do want to mention that part, because some races do have multiple feats you could choose from. You could do a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. You can't just you don't have to do all of column A, all of column B, right? You could do one of each, right?
No, the sidebar here says you have to choose one of the races to give you your stats.
So if you're a traditional half orc or human orc hybrid, you either get the human benefits or the orc benefits. You cannot mix and match at all.
Then what's the point of making a half,
same thing
other than
with
for story purposes?
Bingo.
Do a little bit of column A, column B, people. It's fine. I think that's one big argument I would have when filling out the thing. Is like I would just I'll take the Indomitable from Orc while I take the Fate Touch from Elf, or something like that,
Well, and the thing that people will say is that could get, a little power gamey where you take 1, 2, and then you're just like, well, I've got the best from here and the best from here and left everything else behind.
And then
You're
you
still
also
gonna live
have
out
the
something. I mean, with Fate Touch, like if I jump down to say Elf here, wherever Elf is here,
speaking
down
of
here.
elf, not
Like you
to
could
go
take
off
like so
thing.
you don't get keen senses. So like say I take one thing from Orc, one thing I take like Fey ancestry from Elf. I won't get keen senses, which means I don't have proficiency in perception skills. And I can't trance, it means I have to sleep 6 hours. I don't have the 4 hour thing where I can stay up half the night. I lose those.
Oh, so you're like saying you pick only one from each as...
I guess it depends. Like, I guess you'd have to balance it to where all the races have the same number of feats and backgrounds, I guess. I guess is what you would have to do.
Yeah, 'cause if I remember correctly, the human pretty much only has one where you get the extra feet. I mean, it does have a couple others.
Human has a
skill
few
and
more
whatnot,
here,
but the big one
actually.
is the extra.
Humans actually have three. They have resourceful, skillful, and versatile. Resourceful, you gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest, which means they're going back to the inspiration thing that we were talking about before, how it's being, instead of just getting it like we do, we level up, you basically start with it every single morning when you get up with the birds start tweeting and stuff. Skillful, you gain proficiency in one skill of your choice, and then versatile is you gain a skill feat or another first level feat of your choice. So you gain any feat you want. Which I guess you could say half orc, half thing would actually be more broken because now you can actually have, you could be a fighter half orc with a dominable, and take the versatile feat of like say a sentinel or something like that.
Well,
If it's a first level feat, though.
If it's a first level feat, and if you're looking at any feats from the player's handbook that aren't in this, they're not a first level feat. So you're not getting Polearm Master, you're not getting Great Weapon Master, Sharpshooter, Crossbow Expert. Any of the broken ones, really.
Yeah, no optimization pre sixth level. Okay.
Now, I mean, leveling the feats like that, good job. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Because that everybody took, take versatile human and get like random feat, and level 4 I'll get the other feat that goes with it, and then I'm super boss now.
Yeah. I mean, or you could be a halfling gnome with advantage on wisdom, advantage on all your mental saves, and lucky from the halfling.
But I still think that's fine.
Maybe.
I mean, you're not being a set tier, which you have like all magic attacks. I get advantage on.
True.
I mean, okay, with the whole like all this racial stuff and like that, do you think this will open up the table more to? I mean, we'll break down each race that they've revealed here in a second. But one more thing before we get into that is like, do you think this is going to open up the races a little more to not have as many races banned from the table, or do you think this is going to be races banned just because they're just that strong? Because some races were nerfed in this. For the biggest one being Mountain Dwarf, of course.
I don't think any of these races will be banned.
Yeah, the biggest problems with the races, or the two biggest problems with banning races at the table were flight speed or magic resistance, which none of these things have. One of them has a flight speed that you can use as a bonus action. You can only use it so many times per day, and if you are not held up by something at the end of your turn, you fall. So it's actually not
even the end of your
speed,
turn.
It's a extra jump, like width area. Is it not?
It is not the end of your turn. It's the end of your bonus action. Yeah, so you don't even get to take an action up in the air. You just fall.
Yeah, you have to like perch on something at the end of that bonus action, or you just fall and take damage. Like they completely took hovering out. Which I guess we can go into Ardling real quick. I mean, there's like an Ardling. I get it's weird. They took Shifter mixed it into the
Asmar?
ASMR, or ASMR, depending on how you want to say it. Potato, potato. And they mixed them together, so they made ASMRs be animal like people, which I'm cool with because we had 3 different versions of a cat. We had a turtle, multiple different kinds of birds, no canines. Oh, we had a hippo, we had an elephant, each on their own races, but we didn't have any dogs. We didn't have any other kinds of, I guess, furry kind of people. And this kind of merges them together, which I'm kind of like, why do we make all the furries also be angels? I don't know.
It's... If you're gonna say that this is your dog race, then this is not what you're looking for.
No, it wasn't what I was looking for, per se. I'm
But
okay with it, but that's not what I was looking for.
If you're gonna say this is like your second angel race, then yeah, cool. I mean, the flavor is kind of neat. It's got that like Gods of Egypt feel.
Yeah.
And while we're on this as well,
Anthropomorphic. There's
this
the word
shows a
I'm
lot
looking
of
for.
other things where they technically have a sub-race. Like previously, you had like half drow, half whatever. Sub-races aren't as much of a thing anymore. In fact, elves, for example, they're just elf. Ability-wise, at least, you don't get new abilities with each sub-race of elf.
I mean, you kind of do, but yeah.
One, for
You kind of do.
you get this one, for example. You do get abilities based off of your sub-race for the Erdling, but it is spells. It's not abilities.
Yeah,
it's
just spells.
But one could argue
Personally,
spells
I
are
think
abilities,
it'd be a
though.
little
I mean,
True, and yeah.
I prefer actually having abilities like the Drow, for example. They had the boosted dark vision, but they had the reduced, or they had the sunlight sensitivity.
Well, I mean,
other elf races, you got like an extra cantrip.
We'll get to
some extra.
We'll get to elves, and you'll see, Bailey, that a lot of that's still there. It's just hidden.
It's still there. Yeah.
Is it hidden? Okay.
Yeah, well, not really
It's
that
buried a
hidden.
little
You just
bit,
didn't look
yeah.
hard enough.
But just finishing up the Ardling thing, yeah, there's 3 different types. There's Exalted, Heavenly, and Idyllic. The suggested animals again are suggested. The dog fell into the Idyllic, which was actually the strongest pairing of spells. I know Sean and I discussed this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
guidance and healing word are huge.
Animal Messenger, take it or leave it.
Animal Messenger is just flavor, and I think it's just a balance out the first 2, because the first 2 are the strongest pairing of the first and third levels of the other 2.
I mean, I have had players in my games at like 15th level cast Animal Messenger.
Is it just message?
No, it's sending, but slow.
Well, it's a free spell for a lot of classes.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It might even be a ritual for like druids and such.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here. Animal Messenger here. Here, let me pull it up on our demo field here. Shot here. Oops.
Yeah, it's a
keep
free
talking.
spell
I'll find the screen
for
here.
A lot of, it's a free spell for a lot of classes, if I remember correctly, which is why it might have seen more use.
It's also a free spell for the optional rules for the Tasha's Ranger. It's a ritual spell, so if you're a ritual caster, like a druid or a cleric, and you have access to the spell, you don't have to use a spell slot.
And it's a first level spell as opposed to a third.
Second,
sending.
but yes.
Oh,
second level enchantment ritual with an action. It lasts for 24 hours, actually. So instead of being an instant, I think about a telephone call across the planet. It's actually it takes the length of the travel of whatever animal you use.
Yeah, you take a pigeon and turn it into a carrier pigeon.
Yes, and it doesn't. But the thing about it is, there's no limit on how long the message can be. Where message is limited to 25 words, it doesn't look like there's a limit other than just range.
This is limited to the range that your animal can get in the duration of the spell, and when you upcast, you increase the duration.
I'm sorry, no, it is 25 words. It's also 25 words. So this is actually a weaker version of it. Instead of it's limited to basically 50 miles.
Yeah.
If it's a flying messenger, 25 miles if it's a land animal.
It is also a lower level spell and a ritual spell, so you don't have to spend a spell slot like you do with sending.
Right. I'm just going to check this, make sure that's there. Yep, it is cool. So, yeah.
Well, sending, you have the guarantee of it getting 5%, only a 5% chance of it, going into the void, as opposed to the animal messenger. Well, if somebody's going hunting, the messenger might die.
This is also true. I have seen animal messengers get shot out of the sky.
Yeah. Now note that animal messenger would not work with Find Familiar, because Find Familiar does have a range where they go poof, I believe.
No, it's a range where you can no longer talk to your familiar.
Oh, so this could go with Find Familiar with one of your guys as like owls, and you can send your owl as a messenger.
Yeah.
And you could command it to poof whenever it gets there, and you could bamf it back to you, like automatically.
I mean,
right?
you wouldn't know that it's gotten there yet, but I mean, yeah, you could use actions to bring it back without recasting the spell. So yeah.
Okay.
It's a good spell. It's a little niche, but I have seen it used to great effect.
Hey, strict saving guide. You can have an animal. You can get a Find Familiar that way. Just saying. That would go hand in hand. Dragonborns. Big thing about Dragonborns. Dragonborns kind of got nerfed on this. They took out the bonus action breathing, or have it be count as one of the attacks or something like that. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah. I mean, everyone thought they were going to go with what they had in Fizzbands, and they just didn't.
Yeah, I mean they reduced it back down to now. One thing is interesting that they're all 15-foot cones. There's no longer 30-foot lines. It's now a 15-foot cone. That's it. They're all based on dexterity saving throws, and so they made it more simple. And they all deal 1d10.
The DC is based on your Constitution modifier, which I don't know about any of you, but
that's what it used to be.
That's what it used to be, but the problem was, and still is, that Constitution is usually your second best stat.
Right.
Well, still being second best stat on something that you can use as a utility ability, still not that bad. I mean or tertiary ability, really. I mean,
if you're using it for utility. Yeah, if you're using it for utility, but you're using this in combat.
Ryan's Roar is based on Constitution, I believe.
True, but how many times have you actually used it?
Every combat.
And how many times has it actually worked?
Okay, we're playing against undead. What do you want from me? Blame Bailey for that one, not me, okay?
Yeah.
I can't just turn Roar into turn undead, okay?
But your roar is also a bonus action, and your roar has a powerful effect of frightening enemies.
Oh, yes.
To be fair, the frightened condition is one of the more common conditions to be immune to.
This is also true.
Right, which is why force damage and bludgeoning is like the more strongest two damages, I guess, in the game.
It's like taking poison damage as your main thing, and then getting mad at the DM when a lot of creatures have immunity or resistance to poison. It's one of the more common ones.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the actual damage. 1d10 plus character level.
Mm-hmm.
So at level 1, that's less than a cantrip.
Well, plus, I mean, it's equal to. Actually, it's better than Eldritch Blast because technically, I mean, the distance is shorter, but you can't add the bonus damage to Eldritch Blast to level 3.
Level 2,
On your
yes.
level 2 or 3.
Blast doesn't exist.
Yeah.
If it still says.
Okay.
Okay. It's equal to Firebolt. Okay, let's put that. How that?
It's better than... Yeah, I guess it's better than casting a Firebolt.
And it hits multiple targets, not just one.
But if you compare it to a Burning Hands, which does 3d6.
Burning Hands is a second level spell though, and this is a first level spell.
It's a first. Burning Hands is a first level spell, 15-foot cone, dex save.
Same dex save. Okay, well dex save is the same, but what's the damage?
3d6.
3d6. Okay, so that's 3 to 18 versus 1 to 10. That's actually a lot better.
Yeah, it's a lot better.
Well, the average.
I'm sorry, 2 to 11. I'm sorry, 2 to 11.
Average from 6 up to 11. So this is like if you cast a level 0 Burning Hands.
Although to be fair, it is good in the fact that it doesn't take from your first level spell slots, or it gives you that ability if you aren't a caster.
True.
Plus, it has its own resources of based on your proficiency bonus, so you're not using a spell slot for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's also Burning Hands is not one of the better first level spells. It's like mid range.
It's a great first level spell at first level.
Yes.
First level spells very much get tapered off, and to pretty much shields, mage armor, and other similar things at much higher levels. Like 5th is when they start really tapering off. The damage dealing ones at least.
Yeah, and so by level 20, this ability is doing 25 damage on average.
Isn't bad.
No, it's a 5th level Burning Hands.
And it doesn't use any spell slots.
Let's go to the demo field real quick. So,
but that's at level 20.
So 15-foot cone is this right here, correct?
Half of that.
Not
half that,
right.
Or 15 out.
It's a square.
No, that's right. That's 15.
There. Well, it's 15. The end of it is 15 in diameter, not radius.
Yeah, so
it'd be to
15
here?
feet out and then 5 feet other.
Yeah, so it's
Right here, so it's 1, 2. So it's this. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
Slightly
I think
smaller.
you're slightly smaller, but yes.
Smaller than that? I mean, I can't give it smaller than that, really. Because that's still 15.
15 to 30,
15's
not 35.
here. I mean, 15 cone goes to here. 5, 10, 15.
Yeah, and then you go
down
15. You go down 15, not 30. So you get this triangle.
all sides of the same length.
Both sides of the same length. Those aren't the same length, so it has to be. Then it must be. Then it's this. Then that's it. Then.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure someone can do a little bit better. There's specific rules for how to do it in Xanathar's, but it's not big.
That's lopsided. So it's
You're-
got to be this.
It's
Or
going
it
to be
has to
hard to
be
get more than
this.
2 things.
It's going to be hard to get more than 2, but you usually can get 2.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those. We'll go with this one, I guess, which is the smallest of the two.
But from what I understand, it's going to be the 1 square in front of you, then the 2 next rows, I guess, would be 3 squares.
Yeah,
That's
Or if you do it
okay,
in
so that's
bold, then
what
it's like-
I have right here is it then.
Yes.
pretty much. So at the level that our characters are at, level 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
1d10 plus 12 is doing 17 damage.
On average, not bad.
It's not. I mean, it's not bad. It's like a second level spell.
Well, considering how many lower level things like skeletons and zombies that you're going up against, I'm sure Rayon would absolutely love to have it.
Have what again?
The Dragon's Breath.
A dragon's.
I mean, a Dragon's Breath that does a D10 plus Rayon's character level. So a D10
Especially
average of
the
17.
Lower level fodder that you kind of trip over, like zombies and skeletons.
So maxed out would be 21 to 30.
Yes.
Just for the hell of it, Fireball, you get that around level 6, right?
Level 5.
Level 5. Okay.
Which does an average of 28.
So the best you could do with a breath would be a lot less than that. So the only, so you'd have to be a level 20 to match that. Man.
Well,
I mean,
it's not supposed to match your highest level spell slot.
Well, that's a third level spell slot at level 20.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't upcast that, Bailey. That's average of 28 at the level you get Fireball.
Well, Dragonborn still get the resistance from the damage type you choose from whatever your lineage you had, along with the damage you do with your breath weapon is the same thing still. You get dark vision because everybody gets dark vision, and you also get the Draconic language as usual. So no changes there.
Yeah, well, no, fun point. They didn't have dark vision before.
No, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
But dragons, in a sense, I know we had the argument about true sight.
Yeah, a lot of them get blind sight.
Or blind sight, yeah. Which is not dark vision. That's blind sight's different.
Yeah, a lot of dragons also get dark vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it worth the trade-off on the reduction to the breath weapon not being used as one of your attacks?
Bailey, do you think that... Like, I know my character would never use that breath weapon because I do more damage total with a single hit.
With the weapon you're holding, yeah.
At almost every level of play.
Would you use it, Bailey?
If Ketvio was a Dragonborn, would you use this?
Yes.
I think, okay, Kefia is the wrong one to ask because Kefia also uses those tanks as well. Would somebody like, your Polar Monster guy?
Nicholas wouldn't use this.
If Nicholas was a Dragonborn and had this breath weapon, would he use this? Probably not.
Probably not, because he just attack 3 times.
Personally.
Go ahead, Bailey.
Yeah, no, it's not better than attacking 3 times. I think it would be better for spellcasters personally, because you don't get the only kind of thing that you get is a higher level cantrip as opposed to multiple attacks. Which multiple attacks you get to add your strength or dexterity bonus on multiple times, which is going to be on average better than this, unless if you're given an opportunity, like there's 3 creatures next to each other.
Okay, I should point out that unless you're targeting more than one thing, Firebolt does more damage at level 11.
Would Green Flame Blade do more? Because that would attack extra targets?
I don't know that it does more. It probably does like a couple points of damage less than the breath weapon.
I'm just throwing out a spell that you could use as a bonus action to add onto a weapon attack if it was better. That would hit multiple targets. That's why I threw that one out there.
Not even a bonus action. It's an action.
No, it's an action. You mean attack. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's actually,
That's the thing. This scales with level, but so do cantrips.
Yeah. And cantrips are unlimited.
And at most levels of play, this is... If you can hit 2 or 3 targets, this is a little better than your cantrips.
I guess it really depends on the game that you're playing.
Unless you're a warlock. If you're a warlock Dragonborns, you just cast Eldritch Blast.
Right. In our giant game, I'm blanking on what it was called.
Storm King's Thunder?
You guys remember off the top of my head?
Storm King's Thunder, yeah.
Yeah, Storm King's Thunder, this would be almost worth it. If you're going up against a bunch of smaller things, though, like when we were fighting the Red Brands, or every once in a while when there's a group of zombies against you guys, it would be a lot better. I guess it kind of depends on the game / the opportunities that are given.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be using this late game, even though it would be a guaranteed 16 damage attack, which on face value would be better than rolling 2 bad rolls on your damage die on a regular hit on a regular weapon.
I could see this having been useful in the fight that's currently ongoing in our game. If only because we could guarantee some damage.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, based on their dexterity, your guarantee is like, hey, what are we, level, 11, 12 right now?
12.
12. So you're guaranteeing 13 damage based on their doing their dexterity saving throw.
Yeah, and then, if they have absorb elements or resistance to the damage, but...
What's the proficiency bonus at level 11 right now? Is it 3, 4, 3?
4?
4?
I think it's 3, because I'm only giving you guys a +3 right now.
Well, yeah, that's your charisma.
Oh, that's my charisma.
Oh, yours is attached to your charisma modifier.
Yeah, right. So it's 4, right? So it's 8 plus 4, and say you have a plus... Best case scenario, a +3 in your con. Best case. You're looking at a 15 DC to guarantee 12 damage.
Yeah,
math. And this is level 25 armor, level 27 armor class Kefia here.
Well, that's the thing. The value of this goes up.
I hear you laughing back there, Bailey. Don't even.
The value of this goes up as armor class goes up. But it also goes down once they start getting legendary resistances.
Well, why would you use a legendary resistance that gets a tiny amount of damage? As opposed to, banishment.
True.
It burns the resistance, though. It would burn all the resistances to get to better resistances. So then you as the DM has to choose, do I take the 12 straight up damage or whatever I roll? Or do I save it for something more important? But it
every single time, unless I'm down to a couple of hit points, I will use it on banishment over the breath weapon.
We also have to think about how high dex saves do get on monsters by this level. Like, if you're fighting Strahd has a +9.
We're not talking about Strahd right now. That's later in our campaign, probably.
Well, this would be actually 5 levels after you fight Strahd.
You do realize, Sean, that we do have Strahd and Vecna in this possible campaign. Both of them.
Strahd was a joke.
Strahd is the kid.
Yeah, that was a joke. No, but
I'm still holding on to that.
That vampire we fought had a +9 to dex saves. And how long ago was that?
Episode 13 or 14, I think it was. So half, like 20, 30 episodes ago.
Now, weirdly, the monster this is most useful against is dragons, because dragons have terrible dex saves until you get really high up.
Fighting a golden.
Dragon on dragon action, guys. Okay, we beat this dead horse of a breathing thing. Let's move on to dwarves. Now, dwarves did see a slight nerf because the mountain dwarf does not have a +2/+2 to the ability tracks, because the ability scores once again goes to a background that you choose. You do get dark vision still, because everybody gets dark vision except for humans. You do get dwarven resilience to poisons like that. You still get that. So you get the toughness, the +1 bonus to your HP every level. You get Forge Wise because Mirrodin, that's the god of the doors, right?
No, Mirrodin is the Welsh word for Merlin.
Merlin,
You're thinking of Moradin.
Morden. Because Morden gives them the ability of they can get any tool proficiency they want. Within reason. I mean, they do get jewelers, masons, smiths, and tinkers. You get actually 2 of them, I'm sorry. You get 2 of those choices of those 2. And you get stone cutting.
Stone cutting, which is...
Gives you tremor sense.
Gives you 60 feet of tremor sense for 10 minutes as a bonus action.
So in other words, as a dwarf, you can lay on the ground with your ear on the ground and hear things. That's how I see it as.
Oh yes.
That I love as a player.
Here's the thing. If I'm playing a dwarf now, it's for stone cutting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even something to build around. It's just really cool.
Would you take that when you mix? Well, mix class. If you did the mixed race thing, you could choose like one from each.
If we're using your house rule, I'd take stone cutting. I
don't understand why you take all of one if you're just going to do multi races. Anyways, it's stupid. But go ahead.
I think it was just to add in something without really adding in something.
Yeah.
I like the stone cutting ability as a player. I'm not 100% decided on if I like it as a DM or not. Mainly because of invisibility shenanigans.
True, but it's not sight.
Yes, but you're able to tell where they are, assuming that they are on the floor.
Assuming they are on the same surface, yes.
But they're always going to be on the surface because, again, flying, you can't hover anymore. So at the end of these, some flying... No, they're getting rid of hover, but some races can't hover anymore. Like the Ardling, they can fly, but they have to land. You'll hear where they hit the ground,
Monsters can still fly.
Monsters can still fly, yes. Ghosts don't touch the floor either, or stuff like that. But I mean, I'm just saying, like the removal of hover on some of these things.
Yeah, you do also have to be on a stone surface. So you can't do this on the grass.
If you are a Ardling and you land on a deck made out of wood, you're still going to hear it. I mean, you're still going to send vibrations, if not more so than you would on stone.
Right, but this ability only works if you're on stone. Specifically for dwarves. Because they don't have tremor sense.
You want to house rule that first.
I mean, the wording on it is a little vague.
I mean, if you're telling me if you land like kaboom on a deck on like a boat, you're telling me the dwarf's like, I didn't hear anything. You're trying to tell me that the tremor sense would not go off?
Well, dwarf still has the ability to hear.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But they're not deaf.
I know, but if you're a deck down, you'll know where it came from, like directly on tremor sense.
Well, but tremor sense is not just, I know it came from that direction. It's, I know it down to the inch.
Right.
It's the difference between hearing someone sneaking up on you and doing that thing that Toph does in Avatar.
Okay, but all the squares are 5 feet. You know exactly which square it's going to be on. If you're saying it's down to the inch, you know exactly which square the person's on, or the thing's on.
Yeah.
Or vegetable, or whatever.
And you still have disadvantage to attack them, but, you know, you're never going to target the wrong space.
Go ahead, Bailey. I know you want to
talk. But as I was just saying, the stone, this being specifically on stone, it depends, once again, depends on the situation, depends on what kind of campaign you're running. It's going to be used all the time if you're doing, like, dungeon delving stuff. If you're out and about, not so much. Like, during our Storm King's Thunder, almost never, considering that we were outside the vast majority of the time, except for the few times that we were, like, in a castle.
Well,
as a paved road, a stone surface? Is
say
a
so.
cobblestone
Actually-
a cobblestone road is a stone surface?
I would say yes. I would say stone surfaces will come up a lot. And this is a very powerful ability, I think.
Which is why they also re-mentioned it on the rule set that we started with, so.
Yeah. I think that stone, as a DM, I'd be fine with it. Because I would know that my characters have it, but and that's also not going to
Yeah, for
reveal
sure.
too many secrets, because not everyone pulls the invisibility shenanigans the way you do, Bailey.
Touche.
All right, moving on, I guess. We're moving ahead to, that was Dwarf. I guess we're moving on to, I think it's Elves are next?
Elves are
Elves
next.
are next. Which, again, so for elves, they get dark vision because, again, everybody gets dark vision. Elven lineage does depend on drow, high elf, and wood elf. There is no, like, Eladrin or seasonal elf anymore for the moment. Of course, that could change.
The Eladrin and the Shadarkai are in Monsters of the Multiverse.
Yeah, but you do get elven lineage at first level for drow. You do get the range of your dark visioning doubles to 120. And you also get the dancing lights, fiery fire, and darkness as your spells. For
Which is the spells they always got, yeah.
Which is the spells you always got. High elf gets prestidigitation on the long rest, and you can replace that cantrip with a different cantrip of the arcane list. I don't know why they said it that way. That means you can pick any cantrip you want on the arcane list instead of just saying you get the prestidigitation.
Well, yeah. And
you get any spell you want on
every,
arcane.
You can change it every time you take a long rest.
Right, so that means they can take Acid Splash, Blade Ward, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Friends, Light, Mage Hand, Mending, Message, Minor Illusion, Poison Spray, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, True Strike, and Vicious Mockery.
I mean, I'll be really impressed with this playtest if anyone takes True Strike.
Wow, there it is.
Who knows? They might buff it.
They might.
Buff it, yeah. They also get Detect Magic and Misty Step, Misty Step being very strong. Wood Elf gets their speed increased by 5 feet, which is interesting. I think they had that before. You also know the Druid Calf cantrip, which they knew before, along with Longstrider and Pass Without Trace, which I don't think they had, but I like it.
They could get it through one of the Xanathar feats.
Okay, so they took a Xanathar, which is a more recent add-on, and they made it and they made it a flat. Well, 6 years after the original. So
they did also used to have an ability where they could hide in any natural phenomenon that caused them to be lightly obscured.
Which pretty much would be Pass Without Trace. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, Pass Without Trace you can use it can target up to 6 creatures and gives them a straight up +10 to the.
Much better than just yourself.
Is amazing.
Yeah. And Pass Without Trace actually comes up a lot for sneaking around and stuff.
It's one of the better second level spells. Second to my favorite, Heat Metal.
Yeah. It's also, by the way, not up to 6 creatures. It's every creature within 30 feet of your choice.
Which is bigger than which is actually bigger than a Layman's Tiny Hut.
Yeah, Pass Without Trace is a very powerful spell as it currently is.
Mm-hmm.
Longstrider's okay. Druidcraft is flavorful, I guess.
Well, so is a Prestidigitation and whatever.
Yeah, and Dancing Lights can be useful if you know what you're doing. Detect Magic I like as a free spell.
I kind of like that as a free spell. I think it goes in with the High Elves, like knowledge about the weave of magic that's in D&D. So I
Yeah.
kind of like it. It makes them that sensitivity to it. So I kind of like that.
Overall, I mean, aside from Pass Without Trace being kind of busted, I think these are all pretty well balanced against each other.
Yeah. I think personally, I prefer Fairy Fire over and Detect Magic over Long Strider.
Yeah.
But then again, I prefer Pass Without Trace over Devon Darkness. So.
And Darkness
Yeah.
is very niche if you actually have the Warlock with the whole Devil Eyesight thing. So
Yeah, Darkness is the worst second level spell there because Misty Step is great. But
Darkness can still be pretty good. You can dive
It's
in
not
and
bad.
out of it. We've
Yeah,
used it to decent effect.
Darkness is not bad. It's just I would rather have Misty Step.
And again, of course, being elves, they still get their Fey ancestry of having advantage on being charmed. They also get the proficiency in perception, which is one of the most used skills in the game. And they also get the trance, where they don't have to take a... when they finish a long rest, they only need 4 hours to rest, as opposed to 6 hours like everybody else do. So you can actually take 2 shifts of Overwatch if you want. That didn't change.
Right, yeah. Assuming you're doing 2-hour shifts.
Yep.
It didn't change. They just made the wording clearer.
Right. That's it for elves. I mean, elves didn't really change much, and other than they maybe buff wood elves a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, they buffed wood elves.
Okay.
Gnomes.
Regular gnome. So you still got... They actually buffed their movement. They actually move 30 feet now as opposed to 25. Same thing with dwarves, I think. We actually skipped over that for dwarves. Dwarves actually move 30 feet now as well.
Yeah, fun fact with dwarves, they changed humans so that you can choose to be a small human.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
But you can't choose to be a small dwarf. Dwarves are always medium.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, that is, especially when they're the same height as gnomes and halflings and stuff. So
I think they're slightly taller.
They're a foot taller.
Yeah. Gnomes get dark vision like everybody else, as everybody again gets dark vision. They get the gnomish cutting, which again is the advantage on intelligence, wisdom, charisma saving throws, which is actually a buff because it's not on magical effects. It's just flat out they get intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws now.
Most of those will be magical anyway, but yeah.
Yes. And they also get the gnomish lineage, which this means is that they choose the gnomish languages table. They get forest gnome. They get the lineage. So this is the lineage thing again, like drow, half elf, and wood elves. For this, they get forest, rock.
Just forest and rock.
Forest and rock. I'm sorry, there's only 2. Which I guess the forest is more magic filled, and rock is more primal mountains.
It's more like the forest gnome is your fey trickster. Your rock gnome is your artificer type cunning inventor.
Forest gnomes do get minor illusion cantrip, and they can also speak with animals. And rock gnomes get mending and prestidigitation cantrips.
In addition, continued on the next page.
Oh, and in condition, I'm sorry. In addition,
this
boy,
one's long.
Deep breath.
Do you want me to summarize?
Yeah. Yeah. Summarize that. That is long as flip.
So you can cast prestidigitation, store it into a mechanical device, and then someone can activate that device as a bonus action to get the effect of that prestidigitation.
So it's like a ring of spell storing, only it works with prestidigitation.
Yeah, so
And it lasts for 8 hours.
It lasts for 8 hours. So you can create a fire starter that you can light candles with, or something that changes the color of your door.
A single use one of those. I can think one of those clicking things you start with your barbecues with. That one time it just fell apart.
Yeah, well, that's gnomes.
So nothing really there. I mean, other than their advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, even if it's not magical. And they can
Which
move faster.
I guess the big thing that's not magical but is one of those saves is like Mind Flayer Mind Blasts. Or Intellect Devourers, their ability.
Yeah.
Right.
Moving on to halflings now. They are also small. They also get a movement speed buff of 30. Everybody can move at least 30 feet now. You still get the brave feat, which is advantage on saving throws versus frightened. Again, Bailey mentioned that frightened is one of the worst conditions you can do because there are things out there immune. Halflings are one of them. They also get halfling nimbleness still. You can move through spaces of larger creatures than you, so you can walk between somebody's legs. They still get the luck feat, which if they roll a 1 on a d20 test, again, there's the whole 1d20 test we mentioned before, you can re-roll the die and use the roll. Nothing different there. And they're naturally stealthy. You have the stealth proficiency, which I think is a little different.
They basically rolled one of the subclasses into the base class and called it the whole thing. Sub-race, not class.
Right, and there is no sub-races for halflings.
Yeah.
So it is only the... Which sub-race was that?
Lightfoot. And I think Lightfoot
Lightfoot
had another ability, maybe, but... Yeah, Lightfoot had one other ability, which was they could use larger creatures as cover to hide behind.
Which is that whole natural... Well, actually, that is the natural stealthy, is that you can hide behind a creature. Now, they just get it as a skill. They just have that as a skill now. It's not just a feat now.
Luck is also a little bit better when you consider that a natural one always fails.
Yep. So this is the Lightfoot we were mentioning before. This is what it currently is.
In most cases.
Yeah, it's not too much better. It's just a little bit better. And, yeah, halflings are fine. Nothing to write home about.
No, they're just pretty much the same.
The same solid consistency as ever.
And everybody pretty much took Lightfoot anyways when they took a halfling, so I guess that doesn't really change much. Not many people took the stout one, and there was another one which was a
the marked one.
The marked one, which was the hospitality one.
Oh god, the marked ones, and then there was the Ghostwise, which had its weird telepathy
I did do the Ghostwise. I did try it out Ghostwise, and I kind of liked it a little bit.
I had fun with my Ghostwise druid.
That was really the only alternative for halfling was just the Ghostwise one, and that was just a niche thing from that expansion. Moving on to orcs. Orcs are medium. I'm surprised they cannot become as large too, because they can be up to 7 feet tall.
So these are the same orcs that were published in a recent book.
Right. They get dark vision like everybody else. They get adrenaline rush, which you can take the dash action as a bonus action, so basically a rogue feature. And when you do so, you also gain temporary hit points, which is better than the rogue feature, equal to your proficiency bonus. So it's not that much. It's like 2, 3, 4. Not that much.
And it's also limited uses.
And it's limited to your proficiency bonus. Again, they want to tap into the proficiency bonuses as a well of temporarily used abilities that will increase as the character levels up. Which is fine. I'm totally cool with that.
And if Nicholas was an orc, he would use this ability.
You also get the powerful build, which basically turns into the ability to carry stuff more, which is fine. And relentless endurance is still in there when you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright. You can drop it to 1 HP instead, and you can use this once per long rest.
And you don't even have to make a saving throw.
Yeah, unlike Ryan's tattoo. I think it doesn't work because my fur grew back. I think that's what it is. But yeah, nothing really to talk about orcs. I mean, they're pretty much the same. Other than the adrenaline rush, the adrenaline rush is pretty freaking cool. I would like it on my monk barbarian.
I'd play an orc.
Now here's interesting though. Oh wait, my brain just exploded. So that counts as a dash action on a monk. Can't you when you do Step of the Wind, where you can go airborne? You could do that as a bonus action with this. And get temporary hit points because it counts as a dash. It's called a dash action.
The monk's step over the wind is already a bonus action.
Right, but I mean, you would get temporary hit points for using it when you use it this way, is what I'm saying.
And you wouldn't have to spend key points.
And you don't have to spend a key point. So you get more Step of the Winds. Maybe not. I mean, Step of the Winds you would have to use the key point for. So I guess there's more. So basically, you could just dash in your bonus action X your key points plus proficiency bonus.
I mean, we'll see what they do with monks in this, but I mean...
And you can grapple.
Grappling is the only thing that makes me think monk in this playtest.
Oh, monk's got a huge buff here.
Oh, yeah. We'll see what they do in later. Tieflings, though.
Tieflings, so they really made it so that the Ardling was the opposite of Tiefling. There's some people that have argued this, and they wanted to make it so that the Tiefling was the negative plane versus the ASMR is the positive plane. And in the 1D&D, they kind of made it similar. I mean, that's let's start with that argument first. What do you guys think about that? Let's start with Bailey here. Bailey hasn't talked in a while.
Can you rephrase the question because I did not understand?
Okay, so there's a lot
saying.
of people arguing that they're making tieflings now, other than nerfing the 7 different versions of them. Now there's only 3 versions of them to make it the yin and yang to Ardlings. And that's closer by this respect versus the ASMRs were in the regular 5e. And there's people arguing how now tieflings and Ardlings are the opposites of each other.
I think that they're only the opposites of each other because ASMR isn't in this. I mean, it's the only reason why ASMR in this, if the ASMR is added in, it won't be considered the counterpart just because it wasn't in this book. As personally, I think the Ardling is more along the lines of the Beastlands rather than the Celestial type of creature. That's the feel that it gives to me, which is more of a neutral kind of feel. If I remember correctly, the Beastlands are a neutral something.
Jump in there, Sean.
Plane-wise.
That is an interesting way to go with it, but that is not the flavor that is given to the Ardlings here.
Right. I know it's not the flavor given to the Ardlings, but that's my personal take on it. My feel for it is more so Beastlands rather than the all good ASMR-esque. And I mean, if they're counterparts, I don't mind. It's another race. It's a race. It's a new race in D&D, which I like.
It's a new flavored.
The Ardling.
I think the race exists right now because technically Ardlings are another type of celestial. They're not called Ardlings; they're called something else, and I forget what it is off the top of my head.
Gargoyles.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. But they're reflavoring them to be Ardlings, so they're more player character and not NPC. I don't know. But one thing to note, and I don't know if this is going to show up good. Okay, it does show up a little bit. The Beastlands is the opposite plane of Gehenna in the Cosmic Wheel.
So the Beastlands are very much good
It's a little
aligned.
more good.
Well, they're good.
Right.
More chaotic lined versus Gehenna, which is actually more lawfully lined.
Yeah.
And I forget Gehenna. And Gehenna is right between Hades and the Nine Hells, actually. So where Tieflings are, so that does track. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, Friday Night Dice, we dig deep. We dig deep on these things. But anyways, moving on. So Tieflings are broken into the 3 legacies, just like Ardlings are. They're broken into Abyssal. I'm going to butcher this next one. Chthonic. and infernal. Now, when you say chthonic, it's not Cthulhu.
No, it's
There's a big difference. Cthulhu is astral.
Right. Chthonic refers to the ancient Greek idea of darkness, the chthonic depths of Tartarus.
And here we right here. It even says this in the description of chthonic. It's you feel the tug to Carcery, and Gehenna. So there you go.
And the gloom of Hades.
And the gloom of Hades. So again, going to that cosmic wheel there you go. We were saying like the Ardlings are more pulled to the Beastlands and Elysium and like that. Well, this is the Gehenna, Hades, Nine Hells. It's right directly opposites on the wheel. I guess camera's backwards, going this way. so there you go. Fact is in the writing. But anyways, you do get certain abilities with this. Abyssals get the resistance to poison, and they can poison spray. They get Ray of Sickness and Hold Person. Chthonic get resistance to necrotic damage, along with Chill Touch, which is cause necrotic damage. False Life and Read of Enfeeblement. Infernals get the resistance to fire damage and Firebolt, which is fire damage, along with Hellish Rebuke, which again is fire damage, and again, Darkness.
So, yeah.
I don't know what to think about this list. I mean, you have Poison, Necrotic, Fire. And then you have Hold Person, Ray of Enfeeblement, and Darkness. I mean, they're pretty much linear. I mean, there's no real better set over another one, I really think. I mean, Firebolt's the best cantrip, maybe, of the three.
Firebolt is the best cantrip, and Poison Spray is the worst cantrip by a lot.
Yeah, but Hold Person's way better than Darkness.
Hold Person's better than Darkness. Ray of Sickness, though, is also a bad spell. Well, not a bad spell, but just not a good spell.
What's Ray of Sickness? What is that one again?
It's 2d8 poison on an attack roll. Which you can't crit now.
There you go. Yeah, there's that whole attack thing again. They get, by the way, all tieflings get dark vision because, again, everybody gets dark vision. Fiendish Legacy basically tells what your alignments would be, but again, that's player flavoring and like that. You do get Overworldly Presence, which means all of them know the Thaumaturgy cantrip, and you can cast this trait using the same spell casting ability, whatever from your Fiendish Legacy is. Your Fiendish Legacy is... I'm trying to figure out where it says which...
You get to choose Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma.
Oh, so it's just based on whatever you chose before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, whatever. Bailey, what do you think about all this?
I think they're fine. The Poison Spray, or the Abyssal Tiefling, I'm not a big fan of, because, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, they D12. But it is... Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah.
But it has a 10-foot range, as opposed to like any other spell, which at least has a 30 or 60 you have to be right in front of their faces. The Ray of Sickness is the worst of both worlds, because, I mean, it's an attack roll, so you have to hit, and then you get the damage. And then, to get the secondary effect for the poison condition, they also have to fail a save on top of that. A Constitution save.
So it's a save and an attack roll, so it's two. Yeah.
There's two caveats to get the secondary effect, whereas most other spells, it's just one of the two. But Hold Person is amazing. Granted, of course, if you are humanoid, which it seems like a decent amount of races in the future might not be humanoid anymore. Like you had the Thrycreen, you had the Satyr, you had the Wanti, or not Wanti, Wanti's humanoid, but the Fae and the monstrosities. I think there was an Ooze one at some point as well.
Yeah, the recent one that just came out.
But a lot of the whole person,
Spelljammer.
at least on monster end, is a little bit less useful considering that there's some player races that are coming out which are non-humanoid. For those of you who don't know, Hold Person only works on humanoid creatures.
Yeah, so it doesn't work on elves.
It works on
Elves are
elves.
humanoid.
It doesn't work on satyrs.
Oh,
It doesn't
satyrs
work
on fairies. Oh, sorry, satyrs, fairies.
It doesn't work on plasmoids, Thrycreen, the Auto Gnome, a lot of the ones from Spelljammer, actually.
Basically, all of Spelljammer.
The Haragana.
I forgot to also mention the tieflings can also be small, by the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting.
And even though they're small, it can also move 30 feet if they're small still. Because all races move 30 feet at minimum.
Here's something that the two good things about Abyssal are poison damage is a very common damage type to be hit by as a player. So it's good to have resistance to it. And Hold Person is a good spell. But Poison Spray is a terrible cantrip, and Ray of Sickness is not a good first level spell.
Mm-hmm.
Necrotic damage on the Chthonic is the worst damage resistance of the three. I think we can agree. You don't get hit with necrotic that often.
Unless you're specifically going up against undead creatures in your campaign.
Yeah. It's not like it's radiant or psychic, but it's still not as good as having fire resistance.
Fire resistance is the best of all of them.
False Life is not a good first level spell, but if you don't have to spend a spell slot on it, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Ray of Enfeeblement, I will go to bat for, because it is actually a pretty good spell, if I remember right.
Yeah. Looking up right now.
It's an attack roll. It does no damage. Instead, if the target gets hit, any attack they make with strength deals half damage. For up to a minute until they can make a con save at the end of their turns.
Okay, that's interesting. Because the Ray of Sickness, in order to get the secondary effect, you have to make a hit, and they have to fail a save. With the Ray of Enfeeblement, you only have to make the hit. Granted, on subsequent turns, they can make a save. But you only have to get the hit to get the starting effect.
And
or the secondary effect.
Say you hit a hill giant with this, because hill giants don't have great AC, and they're all about strength attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's not going to last long, because they're going to make a con save pretty quick. But it'll take that 35 damage crit that downs your paladin down to 17 damage crit.
Now, on that same page, I don't think it's a great... It's a fine spell if you're not a caster. If you are a caster, it loses its viability really quickly, in my opinion, because it is a concentration spell specifically.
This is true.
If you're banking on it being a one-round effect, Tasha's Mind Whip, in my opinion, is straight up better. Because Tasha's Mind Whip, for those of you who don't know, if they fail an intelligence save, which intelligence isn't typically a high stat for enemy creatures, they lose their reaction straight up, and on their next turn, they can either only move, use their action, or their bonus action. With Ray of Enfeeblement, they can do all S1E3, granted, if they're using an strength-based attack, then they get to have damage. The Cautious Mind Whip is just better. Granted, it's only a one-round effect, as opposed to Random Fielding, which can be a longer, but it competes for concentration.
We're going to wrap it up there for a minute because we have been talking about for 90 minutes. We're going to take a quick break here and we're going to get back into this. We still got to talk about the backstory, your backstories and everything. We also have to talk about feats in general. So we're going to get to those a little bit. We're going to take a very short break and we're going to dive into those right here, right now. All right, guys? So be right back in 2 seconds. This podcast is brought to you by Anchor by Spotify. If you have a podcast you want to upload to all your friends and fans on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and even Apple Podcasts, check out Anchor. You can upload all your clips. You can put in your commercials, your ad sales, your music, everything right there in one-stop shopping. Anchor by Spotify. It powers our podcast. It will power yours as well. And we're back. So we're actually diving into the backgrounds and stuff like that about building your backstory for your characters and how now with one D&D, your backstory means more because right off the back, again, your ability scores goes from the race to your backstory. What do you guys think about that for the number one thing? Because that's the biggest takeaway I took from this. No, you both talk at once now.
Bailey?
I think it's fine. Taking it from one thing and putting it into another is fine. I like that your ability scores, unlike the very beginning of 5e before classes came out, aren't tied to your race. It gives you more options. And they did the same thing here. Granted, well, it goes along with your background, or you have to build your background ability where you can choose whatever bonuses you want to get a +2 win and a +1, or you can get 3 +1s. So I think it's great in that aspect. Well, I guess we'll to that, but in a second. What's your opinion on it, Sean?
Big old butt.
Honestly, the ability scores being on backgrounds is... I like it. I mean, it's nothing special, really. It's not too different from what we've had before. It's the one step from... It's the logical conclusion after going from PHB to Tasha's to now this. It's fine. It's not going to break any games.
I like it in the fact that it gives your ability scores to the path that you're taking as a background. However, capital letters, and this is direct response to our own campaigns and the next one coming up for you, Sean. This would not work with Ridge. Because Ridge is dexterity charisma base, and for his background, and I don't know which page it would be on. Is he? I don't know if he's a charlatan or not. I can't remember. Oh, I think he is.
Well, the specific backgrounds aren't important here.
No, it wasn't a charlatan because he was like a noble background. Yeah, no, I think it was a noble background. So he's a noble background, which gives him the charisma, but I'm also dexterity based, not intelligence based. So that +1 intelligence, I would actually want that as in dexterity.
Well,
or constitution instead. And I wouldn't use draconic as my extra language. It would be something else.
I think you're jumping the gun a little bit here, Sabre. And I think you're jumping to conclusions, too.
I'm just going off the sampling list that they're giving us. Because, again, these are sample backgrounds.
But if you're taking one of those backgrounds, I don't think that they're going to be used very often, specifically because the ability scores are set and the feats that you do get with the backgrounds is set as well. I think the make your own is going to be much more used unless if you're a brand new player, in which case it's easier to just grab one of the given backgrounds.
So you're
That's my
saying
personal
so,
style.
so you're saying the sample backgrounds aren't finite in stone. You can just build your own by picking the ability scores, picking the skills, picking the tools, picking the language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, they suggest that you do that before they even give you any samples. It's
Right.
The samples are just so that you can see an example and make sure you're doing it right.
Also, the 50 gold to start with on your to get your equipment with, that's actually way more gold than you started with before. That's actually from the noble, I believe. The noble got 50, but everybody else got less. I think they just gave everybody noble gold. So
Pretty much, yeah. If you add up all the stuff that they got, yeah. So,
Yeah, definitely.
skill proficiencies, nothing new. You choose 2 skills.
Mm-hmm.
Tool proficiency, you gain a tool proficiency.
Yeah, which not all backgrounds had, or really, not all backgrounds had a tool proficiency, and some of them were even like, "Oh, you know how to play cards." That makes it a lot more useful. Yeah, exactly. For that one random time, we were in that casino ship.
Yeah.
From I think that was in Storm King's Thunder, the first campaign, which never got aired. Sorry, guys, because we were trying to get used to each other still. But yeah, for that one situation, you were good at cards. Here you go.
Yeah, it's certainly, the flexibility is nice to have any tool, but it's, fine. Language. It's a language. There's a point about languages I do want to make, but I'll save it.
Well, go ahead. I mean, we're kind of being broad with this anyways. Because backgrounds is build your own and just pick what you want, but what about languages?
The only thing I wanted to point out about languages is that you can, through your background, choose rare languages, and this is one of the ones they include, Thieves' Cant.
Oh.
Yeah, that one's funny.
Well, if you were a bounty hunter which is skilled in going after thieves, you would probably be proficient in Thieves' Cant to understand and break down their coded messages on the people you're trying to capture.
Or, if you're a thief, but your class is a fighter.
Right, because you're more of the bouncer in front of your thieves guild, and so you would know Thieves' Cant because you work for the Thief Den, but you're not a thief, you're a fighter because you're more of the bouncer protector kind.
Yeah, I like it. It makes that a little nicer. Also, shout out to sign language, which is one of the options.
Yes, that was cool.
So, I mean,
don't know who's playing with their mic, but somebody's playing with their mic.
I think it's John.
Yeah, that might be me. Sorry, it's
right.
It just happens. I mean, hey, sign language has its uses. It's beyond just talking to deaf people. It's also useful for sneaking around.
To be honest, I'm not a big fan of Thieves' Cant being its own language, because in different areas and for different groups, it's going to be different. You're not going to be in one Mafia group and be able to talk to any other Mafia or similar group very easily. They're going to have their own different codes to, not be noticed by the other groups. And in different sides of the country, or different sides of the kingdom, it's going to be different. But that's my 2 cents on the Thieves' Cant as a whole.
Well, in that respect, I guess you could say they use different jargon to mean the same thing. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult to have a good way to handle that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a difficult way to handle that.
I would rule it, if I was a DM, I would rule it that if you wanted to decode a message, if you know the background of Thieves' Cant, which is more of decoding messages or understanding dialogue of language like that, I would say you would have an advantage on rolling to decipher what this means. Like you wouldn't literally know what it would mean. I would say you'd have advantage to break down what this means. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't know
the way-
exactly. Because you're saying like each thieves' den would have their own variation of language or coding message like that.
Well,
By having a background
here's-
that you would have advantage of understanding what this message would be, and then you
As
would set the
some-
DC to reflect that.
as a DM who has a very prominent thieves guild that talks in coded messages, the way I'd handle it is,
Really, you don't
yeah,
say.
you don't know their code, but because you know codes, you have proficiency in trying to break it down, even if you don't have proficiency in the relevant skills.
You're talking about Ridge, right? Ridge is good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I'm like. You don't say. That's gonna be an interesting campaign. The next one too.
That's all I had to say.
So I guess simple backgrounds. I mean, we really have to go over them because I mean, you can just build your own and just flavor it the way you want to. So I guess
The feats.
yeah. So I guess we're dropping down to feats, which is all the way down to page 16, I believe. Now these are level 1 feats. Now feats are going to be scaled now, so no, you aren't going to be able to have every single feat available to you in the game. There's going to be tier levels similar to what warlocks have and artificers have for their creating of spell items and stuff. They're going to be tiered. So we don't know what further tiers are. We don't know what level those tiers are. I'm going to assume it's 4th level. I'm assuming it's going to be 4th, 8th. What is it? 4th, 8th, 11th,
12.
and 12. Sorry, 4th, 8th, 12, and 16.
And then 19. Don't forget 19.
Yeah, 19 too. Well, not many groups go up that high. more so 4, 8, and 12. More is what you're looking at. With fighter, I think getting an extra one in there somewhere.
Rogues get 1 extra, fighters get 2.
Yeah. So
Doubt that they're going to have special tiers all to themselves, like a 6th level tier, where we'll be probably just
Right.
taking another 4th level, assuming that they are giving them more feats, of course.
right, they're probably going to keep it the way that they're. Well, again, we are guessing here, but because those rogues and fighters are like skill monkeys, for lack of a better term, they would get another choice of defining how they want their build to go about by that way, and choose something at a lower level. Because I mean, like, because warlock, I mean, you gain another one at a certain level, but you don't gain more access to other ones. You know, you still get pick ones from the level you're at. So, I believe so. Or no, artificer. No, sorry. Warlocks do. Artificers don't. Artificers gain an extra one, but you still have to meet a certain level quota in order to get the other ones. Sorry, but yeah. But first off the back, the feats are quite different now. At least the ones they listed here.
Most of them.
Most of them. I'm sure these are not all of them. They can't be all of them because there's not that many here to choose from.
It might be all the first level feats that they're planning on having, at least.
I think it might be all of the first level feats from the
Really?
player's
1, 2,
handbook.
Touche.
Yeah, because there's only 8 of them. If that's the case, everybody's taking lucky at that point.
I don't know.
Unless you want to take magic initiative for something.
It's good.
Yeah,
I mean, we could
totally
start
taking-
at the top.
Yeah, we'll start at the top alphabetical order. So alert. You still get now. This one I know you guys were talking about a lot. So just reading it off. When you roll initiative, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll, which is understandable. Also, immediately after you roll your initiative, you can swap that initiative with initiative of another willing ally in the same combat. You cannot make the swap if you or the ally is incapacitated, which means you're still sleeping or something like that. If an enemy is raiding your camp and you're asleep and you roll for initiative, the other person can't roll initiative because you're still you can roll for initiative, but you're incapacitated, so you can't do the swap then. For example. But you can't
Yeah.
be surprised. Now, I think that's because the surprise rule was really vague. You two dive into it. I know you guys want to talk about this one. Or not, apparently.
Bailey, you have any thoughts? Because
It's not as good, in my opinion. I don't think it's as good as the current one, because the current one, if I remember correctly, you add 5 to your initiative,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
you could never be caught off guard. You can never be surprised, which is pretty big.
there was another bit in Alert, which, if I remember right, is creatures that you can't see don't gain advantage to hit you.
Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being hidden from you, or something to that
Right.
effect.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, they can't get advantage unless or if they're unseen to you.
Right, yeah.
So that is different. The initiative swap can be very powerful in the right circumstance.
Anything can be really powerful in the right circumstances. To be honest here.
True. But I mean, so many times Nicholas would have loved to roll high on initiative and give it to someone else, because Nicholas in that campaign, in the Storm King's Thunder campaign, did not want to go first. He wanted to wait for his enemies to get to him.
Yeah, because there were really large maps.
Because there were really large maps, and Barbarian with only melee attacks can't really do much if they're 200 feet away. So, if he could have given some of those good initiative rolls to Zaztu,
that would have been nice. Zaztu was a buffing character, so having that higher initiative would have been nice.
Therese also had a high initiative too, because I could incorporate my intelligence into my initiative as well. Plus, he had a high dex, which is why he went first a lot. But I didn't really want him to go first very much, other than because the only advantage he got from going first is position on where he wants to be in the battlefield. It was really the only thing he got out of it. So,
I think Alert is fine.
yeah.
Definitely not the best.
I've seen some people saying that Alert is actually the best feat here and is super powerful, better than it was before, and I don't know that I agree. It's good, it's not that good.
It gives you more opportunities for your strongest person the person you want in the position you want to be in sooner. Like, so if you want that Barbarian blocking the hallway coming at the rest of your party, or you want that Wizard to cast haste on multiple players on their team, or bless on multiple, or a Cleric casting bless on multiple players on the team right off the bat, this gives you that ability to try to get that person out there first to do it. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and I think
the amount of bonus you get is nerfed, however.
Yes.
But yeah.
It does also combine well with Rogue, but, so did Harrigan, so.
Don't mention the Ranger. Please do not mention that Ranger for this feat.
Oh no.
I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at Paul in particular. God.
Yeah. So with the
that one shot.
with the terror of a Gloomstalker in mind, let's move on to Crafter.
Let's go on to Crafters, shall we? You're an adept at crafting things and bargaining with merchants, granting you the following benefits. You gain a tool proficiency with 3 different artisan tools of your choice. And you also get a discount by buying non-magical items you receive by a 20% discount. So creation of items across all items. So this actually saves money, which is a good thing. Also, faster crafting, you also reduce the amount of time you would take to craft things by 20%. This rule is not really used much. I actually didn't know about this rule until the one D&D thing came out. But there's actually rules on how long things take to craft when you want to make things, not just magical items, but things in general. You guys want to talk about? You guys knew about that, or I didn't know that.
Vaguely, but I never used those rules, so I don't know anything about them.
It's not so much like, I mean, yes, it is a thing, and you do have to use downtime, but for the things that you guys are most likely going to use, you also need the area to make the item. Like, you can't just make a set of plate mail on the goddamn road. That's not how that works. It's you would need downtime for a lot of things, where you needed an area to actually work.
This is the list for magical items. But common would take 1 week, a non-common 2 weeks, a rare item 10 weeks, a very rare 25 weeks, and a legendary 50 weeks.
Right.
So you're making, let's say you're making greater health potions, which are uncommon, so 2 work weeks.
So 20 would, but it would be 20% less than that. So 14 days
That brings
times
you down
8%. So
Yeah.
math. Keep talking, I'll tell you.
That's like
11 days. Just a
11
titch
days.
over 11 days. So take about 3 days off.
woo.
Yeah, woo.
That's a whole feat.
Hey, when we want to craft a legendary, though, that would take 10 weeks off, straight up.
Now-
So that's 2.5 months.
You still have to spend 40 weeks.
It also
Now-
would cost, it also would cost 80,000 golds as opposed to 100,000 gold, too.
It's usually when you have 80% of the time, you have 100% of the time.
Right.
That's Now, the third part of that, the faster crafting, I don't think it's going to be used that much unless we have long swaths of downtime. The discount part could actually see a lot of use, specifically with spell components. Those high-cost spell components at higher levels.
I didn't even think of spell components.
Yeah, because those are technically non-magical. Like a diamond is not magical. If you're buying $1,000 spell components, it's now only 800. It's a huge chunk of money you're saving.
Saving 200 gold on a hero's feast?
Granted, that's much, much higher level than first, but that's something to consider.
I mean, even saving 20 gold on an identify, or 2 gold on every familiar.
For as often as we go for your familiars, you guys might have 100 extra gold pieces sitting around.
Well, Harley wouldn't be broke.
Oops.
Yeah, okay. In light of that, the feat is not as bad as I thought it was.
I don't think it's as good at early levels, but definitely toward the later levels when you're using those higher spell cost components, that would be quite useful.
So downtime activity crafting under the player's handbook, page 187. For every day of downtime you spend crafting, you can craft 1 or more items with a total market value not exceeding 5 gold. And you must expend raw materials worth half that total market value. If something you want to craft has a market value greater than 5 gold pieces, you must make progress every day in 5 GP increments until you reach the market value of the item. For example, a suit of plate armor, market value 1,500 gold, takes 300 days to craft by yourself.
300?
So on that precedent, so if you are an adventurer, you want to craft your own plate mail armor, it will cost you 750 gold instead of, that's wrong, 1,500 times,
1,200.
1,200 gold. And instead of 300 days, it would actually take you 240 days.
So you save 300 gold in 60 days.
Right.
Yeah. You can also think about, like, I don't know, if you're an archer buying arrows.
Yeah, the fletching, these, stock,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
1 gold normally gets you 20, so it would get you, what, 24?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, this is a whole different animal of D&D about crafting and downtime like that, which you don't normally do unless you're going ridiculous campaign RP stuff, I would say.
Or you have large swaths of downtime in between campaigns.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the only place where this come up. So yeah. And even then, I would argue that if you're having that much downtime, doing this much crafting and all, you're probably doing a side gig which would cover the cost of what you're doing anyways. So I would just wash that anyways.
Yeah, the 20% discount on buying just things in general. Well, players often like to throw charisma checks to get that anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's hard to tell what the real value of this feat is. The real value of this feat is buying spell components for less than they're worth.
Right.
Let's jump on a healer. Now, healer still has the healer's kit. You can have somebody roll their hit die and like that when the creature gains hit points by using the healer kit. But also adding healer rerolls when you roll a die to determine how many hit points a person would restore even on a spell now. You can re-roll the die if it rolls a 1, and you must use the new roll. That's a pretty good ability for clerics, right?
Yeah, I mean, the level is weird because higher level healing spells don't usually roll. They're like, heal. You
70!
70. But lower level ones also, you're rolling usually 1 die and usually if it's healing word specifically, you don't care how much it's healing, just that it is.
Right.
Hey, Bailey, if you add in potions to this, would that make this too strong?
Not really.
No.
So if you roll a 2d4 and you roll 2 1s, you just re-roll them. Would that make this too strong?
I don't think so. Just because it's very little healing. I mean, let's say you roll 2 1s and then you get to re-roll them and then you roll maximum for argument's sake. 2d4 plus 2, maximum is 10 hit points. That's a whole chunk of hit points if you're first or second level. After that, it's not that much.
I mean, and the minimum you would roll with the 2 1s was 4. It's like 6 hit points. Woo. It's the math on this, by the way. Rerolling 1s is better as your die size goes up. So, like on a D4, you're getting half a point of healing for every die you roll. On a D6, it's like 0.75. On a D8, it's like a full point of healing. So a cure wounds, this is basically +1 to your cure wounds. On average. If you're going like with a mass cure wounds, though, it's like +5. I think it's really good on like Aura of Vitality, where you're rolling 20d6.
Yeah, if you're rolling a crap on dice, then it's better. But then you have to be getting those spells, which there are very few of. It's Aura of Vitality.
Yeah. Aura of Vitality,
which Ryan has, by the way.
Healing Spirit was nerfed if you're using the nerfed version of it. If you're using the nerf version of it, it's not great because they can only heal a number of times equal to like your proficiency bonus or something.
Wisdom or spellcasting mod, I think. Yeah,
Okay, so potentially better.
like 3 to
But-
5.
Yeah, it's not great. Getting an extra 3 to 5 hit points for a feat.
So the actual
It-
battle medic feature, by the way, is worse than it used to be.
Is it really?
Because before, you would add the character's level to their healing.
If that were the case, I would like that. This would be much better.
Yeah, the original healer feat was a d6 plus 4 plus your level in healing.
That is so much better.
But you could only
you
use
put
it
it on-
once per short rest on each person.
I much prefer that because if you're using it, ideally you don't have to use it more than once on each player. And
Right.
really, using an action to heal anybody is not great unless if they're confirmed to be going right after you. Using a bonus action to heal somebody is typically fine in most cases, but using your action to heal somebody, they have to be going before the enemy to get any value out of it in a lot of cases.
There was also another thing with the old healer feat. When you stabilized a dying creature, they gained a hit point.
Oh, okay.
And that had no limit to how many times you could use it.
But it still costs your action.
Still cost your action, but there were ways around that, like being a thief rogue and using your bonus action.
So wait, which is better? Your hit die plus your proficiency bonus, or a 1d6 plus 4?
Plus your
Plus the
character.
level.
Well, it's plus the creature's number of hit dice. Total
Plus
number of
additional hit
maximum
points
hit
equal
dice.
to the creature's maximum number of hit dice. Okay, yeah. Oh,
Which
wow.
for player characters is level. And for
Yeah.
monsters is whatever, like 2 to 20.
So they... Wow. This is way worse then.
It's... yeah, you can...
The
Clerics
new
can
one,
now
the
use
one
it.
D&D version is way worse. Let me clarify.
Yeah, clerics can use it in 1 D&D now and not feel bad, but also it's just not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to Magic Initiate, another popular one from 5e.
Skip over Lucky there, buddy.
Oh, I don't want to talk about Lucky. I never like talking about Lucky.
They,
I ban Lucky on my tables, okay? Fine, we'll talk about Lucky. We'll talk about Lucky. So the expanded luck points to even do more than what it did before. So instead of, oh god, I failed this save. Oh wait, I'll roll it again. No, now you can put it against other creatures that roll a disadvantage against you.
That was always a thing.
That was always a
That was always a thing. I never saw it being a thing for making somebody else roll disadvantage. I always thought it was just you. I haven't seen it incur other people to roll disadvantage. I never saw that.
No one used it because you want to use it on your own rolls.
It's better to use it on a saving throw in most cases, than to use it on an opponent's attack roll.
How many luck points did you get before?
3.
3. So now you start with 2 and go up to 6.
Which is better.
It's better. But it also no longer stacks with advantage.
Right.
So
And
is it stronger? So stronger in the long run, but weaker in the early game.
Yes, it's,
weaker in the fact that it doesn't stack with advantage.
and you can no longer turn disadvantage into triple advantage.
Right. Although it is interesting to point out that it does say after you roll the check, you can use a luck point to get advantage. If you roll a check and you have disadvantage, do you just get rid of the lower roll?
So basically, of an accuracy is what you're saying.
I think every table will have to decide differently.
Right.
I think if you're rolling physical dice, what I would say is scrap the roll entirely, roll 1 die. Basically, silvery barbs yourself.
That is
Silvery
the
barbs.
rage right now.
If you're rolling in roll 20 though, just choose one side and take it. If you're rolling advantage always, or if you're rolling disadvantage, just the one on the right is gone.
Well, then you know the result still before you roll, and if the left result is the lower one, you're not going to use it.
This is true. I think the fair way to do it, especially considering this is supposed to not be a very strong feat, it's supposed to be first level, is entirely scrap the roll another die.
I'd agree with that. Or have them use it before the roll, which isn't.
I mean, it says give yourself advantage. If you already have advantage, you can't gain advantage again.
Right. We're saying if you had disadvantage, and then you give yourself advantage retroactively to cancel it out to a flat roll.
Yeah.
Scrap it and roll one die.
Yeah, just roll one die. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So it's not as good as the original incarnation of the Lucky Feet.
But guys, don't forget, on top of the Lucky Feet, you also have all the extra inspirations you're doing too.
Which you can't stack with it.
But you're still getting more advantage rolls.
This is true.
Inspiration you do use before the roll, though.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, you're having inspiration, you're giving advantage. Now you also have a Lucky Feet that's also giving you more advantages to use more often too.
I mean, if
you have a night where you only roll 5 times in one night, you could roll every single roll at advantage, even if you were skilled in it or not.
If Lucky Feet has to exist, this is the version I want.
Right. I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Now, whether it has to exist is another question.
Still banning it from our fucking tables. Anyways, Magic Initiate, another rage of everybody. You get 2 learned. You get Arcane, Divine, and Primal, whatever. You only choose one of those lists. You can't mix and match between lists. You have to choose one of those lists straight up. You get 2 cantrips from that list, and you also get 1 first level spell from that list as well, which you can cast 1 time per long rest. And of course, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma is your spell testing ability, and you choose this when you take this feat. Whenever you gain a new level, you can replace one of the spells and choose for this feat with a different spell of the same level that the chosen spell. So a spell list. So in other words, if you have Burning Hands, you take Fireball. You don't want another fire spell. You can choose Burning Hands to be something else.
Yeah. The good way to do this is Sleep is really good at first level and terrible at 5th. So switch it out for Find Familiar.
I'm bringing the spell list up so we can look at the spell list when we chit-chat about it.
Granted, it's probably just because we only have 3 spell lists. It's interesting that it's no longer a class spell list. Whether or not they keep it as these spell lists or if they'll go back to the class spell lists, we don't know. I would assume that they'd go back to the class spell list or something similar.
Yeah. It's interesting, I guess, that you can take traditional, like Armor of Agathis, traditionally Warlock spell with Vicious Mockery. That's, really only bards.
Right.
But nothing you can really power game out of it, just things you can flavor in.
What I do like about it is, if I remember correctly, the original incarnation of Magic Initiate, you never got to change out the spells.
This is correct. Also, I believe with the new feat, you can cast the spell that you know from your own spell slots if you have any, which you couldn't do before.
Really? You only got the first casting and that was it?
With Magic Initiate, you only got the 1 casting, and that was it. If you wanted to cast it with your own spell slots, you had to learn it again from your class. Which, I think what a lot of people are going to do is take Shield, and now the cleric can cast Shield.
Yeah, Shield, not Vicious Mockery. something mage armor, one of those good ones.
Probably would choose Mage Hand, Shield, and what other could capture better than Prestidigitation?
Firebolt.
Firebolt, Ray of Frost,
Yeah.
Vicious Mockery. Imagine being a cleric and having Vicious Mockery.
Well, and then flip side, if you're a wizard and you already have shield, take Healing Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, your wizard's in the back line, and he can just Healing Word somebody back up to X amount of hit points. Who was at 0?
That's not bad.
And it doesn't cost you a spell slot.
The first time.
The
but
first
you
time.
can use spell slots if you
For the
need
first
it.
time in forever. Okay. Moving on back up to where we are.
No, at least Silvery Barbs isn't on those lists yet.
Oh yeah, Silver Barb's on the list, but that's not original. So
Yeah.
Musician. You gain 2 proficiency in the musical instruments of your choice, and you also gain Inspiring Song. As you finish a short rest or a long rest, you can play a song on your musical instrument, with which you have tool proficiency and give inspiration to your allies who hear the song. The number of allies you can affect is equal to your proficiency bonus, so basically you get a bard ability as a feature.
Notably, bards do not give inspiration. They give bardic inspiration, which is a whole different mechanic.
Right, so this is another lucky inspiration, bardic inspiration thing.
More advantage.
Yeah. Is there too much advantage?
The thing is, even with the more advantage, I'm not sure that Musician's the greatest feat. Musician would be an amazing feat if they didn't give you inspiration on nat 20s.
Right. It would be great. And funnily enough, the more humans there are in your party, the less musicians actually going to get used because they already get the advantage on a long rest.
Yeah, I feel like musician was a good idea that got undercut by the rules posted with it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you would cut the other rules at our table but use this one.
Yeah, the way I think I'd be fine with axing the inspiration on nat 20s, and if you want to take musician, take it as it's written.
Just real quick rant right now. You're getting advantage from inspiration. You're getting advantage on when you level up. You're getting advantage when you go to sleep as a freaking human. You get bardic inspiration. You get inspiration when you're level 20. Is there too much advantage when you layer it on the top of the fact that the enemies that you're fighting do not get advantage on top of all the advantages you're getting? Is 1 D&D turning into easy mode? Like, what is this?
It does feel like that, although I have to check something real quick.
Bailey, get in there while he's checking.
To be fair, well, different gamers like different things. It depends on what kind of experience you want to go with. There's Dark Souls players, there's moderate players, and then there's players that want the easy mode. And of course, you could always have the easy mode game, but also make it harder by going up against harder creatures. With D&D, it's not, oh, everybody's getting advantage, so it's easy mode. No, you could not get all those advantages and still have easy mode based off of what the DM throws at you. Or you can get all those advantages and it still could be hard as hell because the DM is throwing harder things at you. The rules may have it lean towards one way, but the experience is going to be very different based on the table that you're playing at. Which is why I'm saving judgment based off of that.
Yeah. The thing I checked has no relevancy, apparently. I just wanted to check if monsters could get inspiration, and they can't. If they could, it would be funny.
I'm going to counter-argue myself. Now, I think that newer players, newer DMs will use the rules as written as their guide to do things. Your more experienced players and DMs will create their own rule set and everything to make things more balanced in their opinion to whatever the players they're using anyways, because they have more knowledge of the game, they can make more executive decisions with their gameplay. Based on that argument, to give an easier baseline level with all these extra advantages and not having your creatures have advantages like that for newer players and newer DMs to try to get even more people into this game that haven't already been in the game. Okay, yes, I can agree with that. And then your more experienced groups, your more experienced players will rule those out and exempt those rules. Yes, I can see that as the counter argument.
Plus, also being able to roll. I mean, rolling with advantage. People will try to roll with advantage all the time. And new players, when they get to roll with advantage, they see, oh, I get to roll 2 dice, and if one of them is a success, as opposed to both of them needing to be a success, and it works. That's a great way to draw in extra. Extra players. It's a great way to draw new players.
Yeah, it's also
anybody. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just throwing this out there. I'm currently playing a character that is basically advantage the character.
That is true.
I mean, granted, that's because I know a lot about the game and I know how to get every source of advantage. But, making it so that new players can also do that without having to fish around through Xanathars.
By the way, this is going to get clipped off as a single highlight of this whole podcast, I think. But yeah, now that we trashed the hell out of inspiration now, moving on to Savage Attacker. You're trying to deal particular damaging strikes when you take an attack action and hit a target with a weapon. As part of that action, you can roll the weapon's damage dice twice and use either roll against the target. You can use this benefit only once per turn.
So, fun fact, this is nerfed from the PHB.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the PHB, it was pretty much the exact same, but you could also do it on opportunity attacks.
Oh, when you take the attack action, I didn't even notice that. Okay.
Yeah, so they
Once
nerfed...
per turn, when you roll damage for a melee weapon, you can reroll the damage dice or use either total. And use either total. That's all it says.
Yeah, once per turn, which means on your turn, on the turn you take a reaction on.
Whereas that one, the new 1D&D one, it specifies when you take the attack action, which the opportunity attack is not an action.
So they nerfed something that no one was taking.
It also mentions that you reroll the weapon damage dice as opposed to the attack, so it doesn't stat with like smite or bleeding blade.
Right. So if you
it was already dubious if it did,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Right.
But there's other features out there that helps you reroll your fire damage or whatever.
Yeah, but that's normally when you're on fire damage. You're rolling 8 dice. This is you're rolling maybe 2.
Right.
This was not good 10 years ago. It's worse now.
Yeah.
Skilled. Now this one, several fellow podcasters said this is broken now. You have exceptional broad learning. Choose 3 skills in which you lack proficiency. You gain proficiency in those skills. Now, the point about this is, you have to go back a page, is that is this repeatable? Yes, it is repeatable. Which means at level, I forget what it is, at level 6 or something like that,
Yeah.
you can have a skill proficiency, if you set up correctly with rogue and everything, you can have a proficiency in every single skill the game has to offer: perception, stealth, pickpocketing, athletics, acrobatics, whatever, Every single one of those, you can have proficiency by level 6. Oh, and you also have to take the human, I believe, too, in order to do it. So, yeah.
I've played characters that have had expertise in 9 skills.
Therese was an expert in multiple skills, I believe.
And it's cool. It's not broken.
It's not
It was cool on Therese, but it wasn't broken.
While you may have skill proficiencies in every single skill, whether or not you're actually using those as opposed to the other players is the question. Because you may have proficiency in persuasion, but if somebody else is talking, I'm making them roll, not you. You can piss off.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like, whoa, I mean, you have proficiency in Arcana. So does the wizard, and he has a better intelligence.
Right. And if in my opinion, if you're making it as broken as it seems, as the other YouTubers are saying, like, oh, you have proficiency in all these skills, you're going to be doing everything. That requires you to not let the other players play outside of combat. That requires you to be the main character, which D&D is not about one person being the main character. If you want to be the main character, write a goddamn book or play with yourself.
Yeah, when I was playing I was playing like a level 11 rogue, so I had reliable talent. I was a scout, which got extra expertise, I think, or extra skill proficiency. Threw in a level of ranger, knowledge cleric, 3 levels of bard. So I had like 9 or 10 expertises, proficiency in everything, and couldn't roll below a 10. It wasn't really fun.
Just a word note, Therese actually had 7 skills, but he also had 7 tool proficiencies for a total of 14, by the way.
Yeah, and Therese did not make all of the rolls.
Yep.
He didn't even make all of the rolls for like reading books. Even Nicholas helped make rolls to read books that one time.
But he did have expertise on all those tool efficiencies, so his proficiency bonus was doubled for those.
And I don't know about you, but when I'm making a character, at most I have 2 skills that I want but can't get proficiency in.
And
more than 3 is excessive.
Right. Making a note on that Therese thing. If Therese was making the perception or insights, which they had proficiency in, there were people up in the party that had better bonuses in those. So yes, you can have proficiency in every single skill. Are you going to use it? Probably not, unless if you're, in other words, being an asshat.
Yeah.
Or you're split the party and you're on your own.
Yeah.
But you did have proficiency in both, and it was +5 in both. So it definitely wasn't the best. But still +5. So
the only way where you're not being a main character and using your proficiency in every single skill is if you are the only experienced player in a group of movies, and they are not taking the liberties to roleplay their character and stealth and sleight of hand and persuasion and investigation, all that jazz. And even then, I don't think that the newer players would appreciate it.
So what you want to take your skills in are the skills that generally everyone's rolling, like stealth.
Mm-hmm.
Stealth and perception.
Yeah, the big like 3, I guess. Well, big 4, which is perception, stealth, persuasion is another big one, which you mentioned before about lowering the prices of items and such. And the other one I would say would be either insight is high on the list, also intimidation's also high on the list. Again, charisma based stuff too, but
yeah, because I mean, You can
And
make
then
use
athletics
of
or
charisma
acrobatics
skills.
is the other one. That's the
Right,
big 5.
athletic or acrobatics. Because those are
Yeah.
specifically based on your character and everybody's going to be needing to make those if you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, skilled feat wasn't the top of my list before. It's not the top of my list now, but it's fine.
Okay. We're about almost 3 hours into this. We're gonna wrap up with the last 2 here. Tavern Brawler, which again, remember, grappling is a thing now in 1 D&D. So when you hit with an arm strike, you deal damage. The blade damage is 1d4 plus strength modifier. I believe there's no change there for that. You damage rerolls is interesting. You actually reroll on a 1. So 25% of the time you're going to reroll.
Or you're playing a monk.
Yes, but the monk's unarmed strikes scale. But
Yes.
you still get the damage reroll because you're unarmed striking, so you can add... So Tavern Brawler is now an option for monks, where it wasn't before.
And like I said before, when you're re-rolling dice, the more you scale that die size up, the better it is.
And now all furniture weapons, which you can makeshift weapons, is a great club. It basically is called a great club.
The whole furniture thing, it feels weird, and I don't really want to engage with it because it just feels wrong and restrictive. And just if you want to say objects.
But the interesting thing is, it doesn't say you have proficiency. It just says you can wield it, and you get the rules as a great club, which I believe is a 1d8.
No, 1d8 two-handed heavy. Yes.
Yes. So it's basically like a staff. So, I mean,
if you're using the rules as a great club, I would consider if you have proficiency in a great club, you'd be fine. And just as a part of it, like, why not just give them proficiency in it anyway?
Yeah, it does say use the rules of a great club. So if you use the rules of a great club, your proficiency of the great club, then yeah. But your great club is it's not a martial weapon, right? It is a
simple. It's
simple weapon. So pretty much every single class could use it.
Here's the funny thing. The Tavern Brawler can't use a broken bottle as a weapon.
Because it's not furniture.
Because it's not furniture.
That is weird. I will admit that.
I mean,
you can't use it. You can't throw a dead body either because it's not furniture.
Yeah, but I mean,
because dead body is an object, not a targetable character. By the way,
but a broken bottle is like the definition of a tavern brawler.
Yeah,
that's the whole essence of it distilled into one image: is smash a bottle.
Well, that and a bar stool, but
and a bar stool, and you can use the bar stool, but you can't use the broken bottle. There had to have been a better way to word it, but I don't know what it is.
But the thing is, also, by the same token, throwing hitting somebody over the back of the head with a chair, which is several times larger than a bottle, which is about the same thing as a dagger, and the dagger only does 1d4. You saying that a broken bottle could do 1d8 damage? Then I would say no.
It would be using the
Makes
single
sense there.
club, which I think is a d6.
A club is a d4.
Club's a d4. Oh, okay.
A club is a light d4 weapon.
But this is a great club.
Great club for great club for smaller medium furniture. Club for tiny.
Oh, so it'd be a tiny furniture. Okay, so then yeah.
And, I think
I would say a bottle is fine.
I think the rereason they didn't say objects is because they didn't want someone killing someone with a pillow.
Pillow fight! Rage.
What's really funny, in my opinion, what's really funny is the damage reroll portion of it. You get the rerolls on unarmed attacks, but not on the furniture.
Yeah, I mean, also the shove is pretty good, but that's also just unarmed.
Oh yeah, skip shove. I'm sorry. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of the attack action on your turn, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away. You can use this benefit only once per turn.
Which, yeah, I mean, Telekinetic is a good feat, and it only moves things 5 feet.
Yeah.
It helps you with disengage.
It helps you with disengage,
And it helps
or
you
you punch someone into a wall of flame.
Unarmed strike booming blade.
Doesn't work right now because you need a weapon to booming blade.
My
it needs to be
fists
a
are my
certain gold
weapons.
value.
It needs to have a gold value. I mean, I guess
No.
a severed human hand probably costs at least 1 silver.
What are you? What?
I was.
I'm
on
a
the
monk
path
punching with
of brass.
What are you talking about?
I was on the path of brass knuckles. Where the hell did you come up
I
with
was
that?
going to brass knuckles like behind you, but
Well, I was thinking about that, but then I realized a bare hand also probably counts.
your argument's unbearable. Don't even. Oh god, moving on to tough, our last feat to mention. Your hit point maximum increases by the amount equal to twice your character level we gain with this feat. Whenever you gain a level in this feat, your hit points are maximum additional 2 hit points. There is no change in that, I don't think.
No, it's
That is exactly the same as it is currently.
Maybe different wording, but it's the exact same.
it's the same. It's the same wording even. It's
Oh, really?
yeah,
It's
it's
copy pasted.
copy and pasted. It's here because it's a first level feat in the player's handbook.
And for those people who are watching this not sure much about D&D, you could use this with a dwarf and having 3 hit points added on per level.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
stackable. So
It's good. It's
if you have a high con 18, which is a +4, you can do hit points over maximum of 2, +3. So you have +7 HP per level if you really wanted to. So
here's where my gripe with Crafter comes in.
we're going back to Crafter now.
Any character that I'm thinking, like, all right, I want this to be a crafter. Am I going to take the crafter feat, or am I going to take the tough feat? Because the tough feat gives me combat advantage without hampering the flavor.
I don't know. I really like how the crafter fee gives you a discount on buying things rather than. I think it's funny.
Yeah, so let's talk about Crafter again real quick. So if you are buying spell components that would have to do with your tool proficiency. So say if you were a calligrapher and you were buying supplies for your inks and papers, because that's technically those same kind of supplies, you would get a 20% discount on that, wouldn't you?
I think it's just anytime you're buying things that aren't magic.
Yep.
It doesn't even have to be related to your tool proficiency for buying things.
Oh, okay. I was mixing it up with the faster crafting thing.
So,
What's not a magical item, right? I mean, paper and
The
inks.
inks could be argued as magical.
I
don't care.
I hadn't considered spell components before, which is why I thought Crafter was hot garbage. But with spell components, it's workable.
So you're saying that a Eye of Newt is a magical item?
No, I'm saying that, it's that.
You're saying, well, okay, in that vein, you could buy a 300 gold diamond for 20% off.
Yeah. I'm just saying that the same character type that would take Crafter would also take Tough.
What?
And Tough is good. Tough is really good for a first level feat.
Yeah.
I don't know about a first level feat
I don't know.
until you get to those higher levels.
I really don't think if you're a wizard, you would take Tough over Crafter or even Magical Initiate.
Tough goes a long way on a wizard.
Well,
or
I know
a
Tough goes
sorcerer.
well on a wizard because, I mean, you're only starting with, 7, 8 HP. Tough would get you up to a double digit, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Isn't
having
great
that...
at first, second level, or third. it's when you start getting to those higher levels where it starts really making a difference. In my
Yeah, tough is a weird one because the min-maxing side of tough is best on wizards and sorcerers. It's actually not that great on fighters.
because it's a less percentage of what you're already getting each level.
Yeah. I mean, it's great on barbarians because resistance go burr.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah, it's a weird feat. I like tough.
But if I take Crafter as a wizard, and if I'm buying like a little over 1,000 gold worth of items and stuff like that every time I go to a town, I'd be saving 216 gold every time I stop in town for components.
Here's another thing about Crafter.
And that
How many...
Also,
our table is
toughness
pretty unique in that we actually make people buy their spell components.
Indy did it to me.
Yeah. A lot of tables, they'll just say subtract the gold. You don't even have to buy it, just subtract the gold, or they might even not do that and just have you cast the spell.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So
they actually make you go out and buy the components, and there's only a certain number of stock and whatnot.
Well, I'll take that back. Indy didn't do that to me. He did it with the papers and inks and all to write into my spell book.
Yeah.
And when it failed, I had to rebuy that stuff again.
I'm just saying, we adhere to those rules a little more closely than most D&D tables.
Right. And we go by the magical focus rule, where if it doesn't have a cost item that is consumed when you cast the spell, you can just use your spell focus as the root of where you cast the spell from. If it consumes it, for instance, Revivify with a 300 gold piece diamond, you have to have a 300 gold piece diamond, and it does get consumed when you use it.
Also,
that's the rule that almost everybody uses too. So
if it costs gold pieces as well, you have to have it.
Right.
Yeah. Not only that, it's consumed.
It's so
any time where a spell consumes a resource.
So I guess moral of the story: DMs don't prevent crafters from getting discounts on spell components. Don't nerf the feat.
No, don't nerf it. No. I think it's going to wrap it up. So again, looking back, D&D 1 as a whole, what do you think?
I actually like a lot of it more now that we've had this session. I like Inspiration, the changes they've done to that less. I like Critical Hits less. But the feats I overall like better. The races I overall like better now that I've heard some other opinions. The survey is open for the next 6 days as the time of the recording.
That's correct. There's only 1 week remaining on the survey. And Bailey, once you give your summary, I'll pull it up.
Overall, I like 5e better than 1 D&D. Not just taking the base rules into effect. I mean, we've already talked about it a lot too. And if we play 1 D&D, there's definitely house rules that I would like to implement. I prefer the races of 5e more. I prefer the combat aspect of things, like on the monster side, and the inspiration, the 5e more, as well as the critical hits. The feats, I like the 1D ones better, I will admit. What other portions were there? It was the races. Oh, the backgrounds. The backgrounds I like more in 1D as well. Just the fact that, well, I mean, it gives you a feat straight up. That I like. It gives you a little bit more options, a little bit more power at the beginning of the game, rather than, oh, woohoo, level 1 character, what can I do?
Yeah, going back to that again, you can go on to 1dnd.com. You go under the sources. You have to sign in, though. You do need an account, which is free on 1D&D, or for D&D Beyond. And you do have until September 15th, which is actually 6 days away, like you said, You can download this PDF that been showing you on the screen, and you can, right next to it, take the survey. The survey is quite long and quite in depth, so you are going to have to sit down and go for a very long time to fill it out. I can't pull it up on the screen, unfortunately, but yeah, so September 15th is the cutoff for that. That's my review of One D&D. I did get my little spoof on, on inspiration and luck and everything, which I hope we do not bring to our table. I do hope that we let the monsters still crit at our table, because we want the realism of this could be bad. Because that's part of the excitement.
Yeah.
I want to keep knocking out Toll with critical hits.
He's not even here to defend himself.
No, he's not even here to defend himself either. He doesn't have his computer here right now. So. Oh, he's going to listen to this on his way back from his vacation and be like, oh, what the hell? All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Again, brought to you by, thank you, Anchor, for supporting us as well. If you want to upload any kind of podcast you want, you can record it, put out music, put your ads in. Everything is all in one queue. It packages it all together and puts it right up on air for you. So it's a great tool to use. Once again, I'm Sabre Wolf. Thank you, Bailey. Thank you, Sean, for joining us tonight. We do these podcasts as Phil for when we don't have a campaign night. And by the way, slight little announcement, not probably down the road in December. Apparently, our resident optimizer is going to do a 50th episode one shot, and it's apparently going to be hard. We're level 15 or 16 or something like that?
15, yeah.
Yeah, 15 or 16th level. And yeah, he's going to put us through the ringer, apparently. So we'll see how that goes. Any suggestions do you think that's going to be besides another Tarask?
It could be anything.
Oh boy, level 16, yeah.
Oh, is it level 16?
Yeah, level 16. I told him make it Christmas themed. But
tropical. Yeah,
he says tropical. Then of course, I answered that with a pineapple decorated like a Christmas tree. So yeah. But all right, guys, that'll take care for us. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a good day or night.